They looked at Wang Xian in awe and astonishment. No need. Wang Xian glanced at them and shook his head. He didn't mind it at all. It's the eggs of the twin-armored sea turtle. At this moment, a girl saw the pet eggs in front of Wang Xian, and her face lit up with excitement. It's still 3. The few of them looked over and were visibly moved. Congratulations, senior, for obtaining 3 such precious pet eggs. A young man said with a smile on his face. Oh. Chapter 2246. 2246 Sea Monsters. Wang Xian didn't talk too much with the group of young men. When he learned that taming sea monsters could be exchanged for more resources, Wang Xian was tempted. With his current strength, he could directly rule over sea monsters below 8 wisps of divine fire. It was very easy to tame them. It would take some time to tame sea monsters above 8 wisps of divine fire. However, it was definitely worth it to sell the sea monsters. Looks like I have to change my strategy. Wang Xian was floating in the sea with a contemplative look on his face. Since he could obtain more resources by selling the sea monsters he tamed, he would sell the sea monsters he tamed. He opened the AI on his arm and started searching immediately. The value of the pets, the information of the beast tamer, how to sell the pets, and so on. Wang Xian looked up all kinds of information. Soon all kinds of resources appeared. Beast tamers are even more special than array masters. Powerful beast tamers belong to the existence that all the major forces are fighting for. However, the job of beast tamer seems to be very difficult. It's even more difficult than array masters. It's very rare. It's also because it's rare. The value of all kinds of pet mounts is very high. Wang Xian read through the information one by one. In this vast world there were humans, demonic beasts, robots, and other powerful living creatures. Among intelligent creatures they were basically equal. For example, divine beasts and demonic beasts were as intelligent as humans. Under such circumstances, there were very few intelligent demonic beasts as human mounts and pets. Only desolate beasts and sea monsters would be used as mounts and pets. Furthermore, humans did not dare to make fey beasts their mounts and pets without absolute confidence. Mounts and pets were the closest combat partners. When fey beasts with intelligence fought, they might kill their masters for freedom. The tamed desolate beast sea monsters were different. They would acknowledge you as their boss and not dare to resist. Creatures without intelligence were sometimes more loyal than intelligent creatures. This was like the birth of a mechanical race. The mechanical race was created by robots created by humans with intelligence. After killing their masters, they would establish a huge mechanical race. In the natural selection continent, there were people who sold pet eggs and tamed mounts. They were sold on a street beside the Mystic Heaven Academy. Similarly, if there were a large number of mounts and pets, there would be forces that would come to purchase them after the news was released. In short, tamed pet mounts were definitely priceless in the greater world. Even if one were to get a few million of them, they would be able to digest them. This is good news. Wang Xian revealed a smile as he looked down. Continue to go deeper. However, before that, I have to find a way to trap the Eternal Lord Sea Monster. Wang Xian moved his body and flew deeper into the underground sea. His speed was very fast. Since he was in the middle of the sea, the water pressure could not cause any pressure to him. Wang Xian continued to go deeper into the sea as he stared at his surroundings vigilantly. Heaven formation. Do you have any way to trap the Eternal Lord, so that he cannot return to his divine kingdom in an instant? He asked Sky Array God Emperor as he swam. There is one way, but it will have to wait for you to level up. A Tier 4 array formation of the God Lord can interfere with space after it is set up. Even the Eternal God Lord cannot return to his own divine kingdom. This array formation is very rare. It is best not to set it up in front of too many people just in case. Emperor Tianqing replied. Chapter 2247. 2247 caught them all in one go. Woo woo. The 3 sea monsters stared at Wang Xian furiously. They had already treated Wang Xian as a prey. From the aura that Wang Xian had unleashed earlier, they could roughly sense it. This human was easy to bully and could be eaten. Wang Xian stared at the sea monsters that were charging at him and didn't take any action. He slowly gathered his strength and prepared to kill the 3 main sea monsters in one move. Woo woo! At this moment, the main sea monster that was at the forefront of the group opened its ghastly mouth. The teeth in its mouth were blood red in color. It looked like they were filled with blood. Buzz! Seeing the 3 main sea monsters enter a range of 1,000 meters, Wang Xian moved his arm in the next moment. He stretched out his arm and instantly transformed it into a dragon claw. The gigantic dragon claw covered the entire main sea monster. The destructive energy contained in the dragon claw caused the seawater in the dragon claw to boil. Roar! Roar! Wang Xian's sudden burst of strength caused the main sea monster to reveal a look of fear. This sudden burst of strength was sufficient to fight against a level 4 main sea monster. They could be killed in an instant. The threat of death enveloped the 3 main sea monsters of the Omen God level. Their faces revealed a terrified expression. Bang! However, in the next moment, a terrifying dragon claw landed on the body of the main sea monster of the Omen God level at the front. In an instant, the body of the main sea monster of the Omen God level began to collapse. Roar! A shrill scream came from his mouth. The main sea monster of the Omen God level revealed a terrified expression. Roar! Roar! The other 2 sea monsters of the Eternal Lord level at the back were extremely terrified. Their figures were flickering, trying to escape. Wang Xian's eyes revealed a cold expression. His arm suddenly accelerated. Bang! The dragon claw landed on the body of a sea monster with a flickering body. Large chunks of flesh and blood were caught in his hand. However, the next moment, the 2 sea monsters of the Eternal Lord disappeared instantly. One of them had more than half of its body caught in Wang Xian's hand. However, even though more than half of its body was captured, it still managed to escape. With the regenerative ability of the Eternal Lord, it would be able to fully recover within 10 days to half a month. Damn it, there's only one left. These Eternal Lord level sea monsters are all spiritual beings. Wang Xian looked at the flesh and blood in his hands, and a corpse beside him. His expression was a little ugly. He instantly killed 1 main sea monster and 2 escaped. It was too difficult to kill an Eternal Lord level creature. Moreover, these sea monsters of the Eternal Lord level would run away whenever they were in danger. Now it's difficult for me to kill them, let alone tame them. Wang Xian mumbled as he looked at the corpse beside him. He turned into a dragon head and devoured the main sea monster of the ancient horse god. He looked at the other half of the corpse and hesitated for a moment. Let's check it out. Wang Xian moved his arm and drew 2 formations in front of him. They were connected by blood. A mirror image. Buzz! The 2 formations went down and soon, an image appeared in Wang Xian's vision. This was a part of the underground sea. This was a very strange place. The top part of the place was filled with soil, and many aquatic plants were hanging below. In the image, there was a row of caves located there. As for how many there were, Wang Xian didn't know. This is... Wang Xian squinted his eyes slightly. His eyes were sparkling. The lair of the sea monsters. Furthermore, it was the lair of a group of sea monsters. Regardless of whether it was the human eternal god, or the sea monster's eternal god, they would hide their eternal kingdom in a safe place. As long as their eternal kingdom wasn't found, once they hid, they wouldn't be able to kill them. The eternal god lord would place his god country in a safe and hidden place. The undying emperor was even more powerful. The undying emperor could open up a dimension space. Hence it was even harder for them to find his undying god country. The nest of the horse god lord sea monsters was obviously very safe too, and this was a small race's nest. It's about 100 million kilometers away from me. It's not too far away, and this place should be. Wang Xian narrowed his eyes slightly. The place shown in the mirror should be beneath the natural selection continent. The underground sea was located beneath the natural selection continent, and those hanging seaweed should be the lair of the sea monsters. According to the information, The strength of the sea monster of the Lord of the Rolling Horse God 2248 should not exceed level 2 of the Lord of the Eternal God. This is a poisonous fog. Even if there are dozens or hundreds of them in a tribe, I can still underground sea. Wang Xian pondered in his heart the poisonous fog around him. Should I go and take a look? A solemn expression appeared on his face. And their eternal kingdom is there. The poisonous fog even corroded the surrounding seawater. The entire area seemed to be a terrifying space. If there's any danger, I'll escape immediately. Wang Xian snorted coldly. Made up his mind. The Taiji diagram floated around him and flew towards the south according to the blood connection formation. Fog around him. That was the area below the triangular-headed sea snake in the sky. The distance of 100 million kilometers was neither too close nor too far. Wang Xian growled, speed, and the 5 elements millstone appeared in the sky above him. In an instant, a terrifying array formation burst out from the 5 elements in Wang Xian's line of sight. Golden Sandstorm was a level 3 array formation of the Eternal Lord. The ground. Once the array formation was set up, it could fight against level 4 Eternal Lord under the continent. There were 5 elements floating in the air. Was now used by there were also some strange corals that were emitting light. He had set up 5 formations of metal wood to appear on the pitch black seabed. The formation compass had the greatest advantage of using energy. Wang Xian stared ahead. During a battle, this area could be considered as the real underground sea area. This was similar to the moves of other experts. The area he was in just now with a wave of his arm, he could release it. Once he encountered danger many formation masters would bring along a few formation compasses. I'm comparable to a god lord who has mastered 4 laws. And the formation master would not be able to react to an eternal god lord of level 4. Although formation masters were strong, as long as my luck isn't too bad prerequisite, it shouldn't be a problem. They had to set up a formation. Wang Xian moved. It would take some time to set up a formation. His figure as he flew forward. During this period of time, the dragon eyes of the yin yang and 5 elements were constantly vigilant. Had gathered 5 formations on the 5 elements millstone. He didn't dare to get too close to the continental plate above millstone to unleash. Instead, he was located about 50 kilometers below him. Boom. As he kept walking forward, the moment the golden sandstorm formation erupted could be heard from his surrounding area within a few thousand kilometers was covered by a golden sand sea. Whoosh! The golden sand contained a terrifying penetrating force. Streams of black energy that triangular poisonous arrows shot towards Wang Xian from the sky. Whoosh! The dense number of poisonous arrows covered was 10 times faster than that of the triangular-headed sea snake. Wang Xian's expression changed slightly. Drops of golden sand arrived in front of the triangular-headed of his body were instantly enveloped by the yin and yang poles. In the triangular-headed sea snake spat out a long poisonous arrows were aimed at him. The black mucus on it corroded the golden sand. An ice-cold sea snake with a triangular head swooped down. However, very soon, sea monster, the triangular-headed sea pupils revealed a look of panic. The Taiji pattern around him spun and slowly covered the countless poisonous arrows. Wang Xian's terrifying dragon claw clawed at him. The poisonous arrows landed on the Taiji pattern urgent sound and produced from its mouth. Collision. Its figure started to turn illusory. The poisonous arrows didn't dissipate. The dragon claw swung over. Instead, Wang Xian was holding a 5-meter-long snake head in his hand. The area within a few hundred kilometers, the body of the triangular covered by this dark green poisonous fog. It escaped again. Wang Xian grabbed the head of the snake and shook his head helplessly. This was the terrifying and tenacious vitality of the Eternal Lord. As long as he could escape with a body, a piece of flesh, or even a drop of fresh blood, he would not die. Although the head of the triangular-headed sea snake was cut off by Wang Xian, it was not dead. It was just severely injured. With its recovery ability, it would be able to recover completely in a few years. However, this head is equivalent to a level 1 corpse of an Eternal Lord. Wang Xian turned into a dragon head and devoured it directly. The surrounding space was still filled with poison. With a move of his body, he stepped out of this space. Raising his head and looking at the land above, Wang Xian's eyes sparkled. This place was a little dangerous. Some powerful sea monsters would set up an ambush here. Those who were weaker, or were not careful would have the chance to die here. Wang Xian showed a hesitant look. Chapter 2249 2249 made a huge profit. Boom, boom, boom. The second-level master Eternal Celestial Beings, main sea monster was charging towards him. Behind him, the second-level master Eternal Celestial Beings, main sea monster did not hesitate at all. This was their lair. Even if they wanted to escape, there was nowhere for them to escape. Bang, 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 bang. Wang Xian saw 25 second-level master Eternal Celestial Beings, main sea monsters charging towards him. His dragon tail swept towards them. The continuous sounds of collisions rang out. The group of level 2 Eternal Celestial Master level sea monsters had no ability to resist at all. They were sent flying at an even faster speed. Their attacks couldn't even break through Wang Xian's defense. 5 elements restraint. Wang Xian moved his body and streams of energy were directed at the 20 sea monsters. Due to the suppression of their strength, the sea monsters didn't have much strength to resist. Awa, awa, awa. A series of terrified sounds came from the mouth of the sea monsters. All of them were extremely flustered. Among them, there were 2 sea monsters that were escaping into their lair. Walala! Wang Xian waved his arm, and the grayish chains wrapped around all of them. Trying to escape. The corner of his mouth curled up slightly, and his eyes were filled with excitement. Among the 25 sea monsters, 3 of them had reached the 2nd level of the Eternal Lord. If Wang Xian were to devour them immediately, his level would increase immediately. However, he did not do so. Boom, boom, boom. Waves of majestic dragon might suppress them, causing the sea monsters to tremble. Woo woo woo. They looked at Wang Xian in fear and begging for mercy. Their eyes were filled with respect and fear. Bang bang bang. Wang Xian flew to their side and waved his dragon claws. The powerful force caused them to tremble slightly. It might be difficult for others to become a beast tamer, but it wasn't difficult for Wang Xian. He suppressed them with his dragon might and divine dragon's blood, and tamed them with his beast taming technique. With Wang Xian's strength, it wasn't too difficult for him to tame the desolate beast sea monsters that were weaker than him. Furthermore, his speed was very fast. Roar! After dripping the blood that contained the power of the divine dragon, half an hour later, the main sea monster of the omen god in front of it let out a weak growl. Wang Xian did the same thing. He used 10 hours to tame all 25 divine beasts of the omen god. Phew, the harvest is not bad. I can make a huge profit. Wang Xian stared at the 25 divine beasts in front of him. His eyes were burning with excitement. If he sold these divine beasts, he could ignite 9 wisps of divine fire. He wouldn't be too far away from reaching the level of Eternal Lord. Oh right, there's also their lair. Wang Xian moved his body and looked at the more than 20 caves above him. He moved his body and immediately flew into the holes one by one. This is primordial water? Primordial water of the Eternal Lord level. These are the bones of the other sea monsters. There are 3 of them that are of the Eternal Lord level. These bones can be used to forge divine weapons, or even eternal divine weapons. There are also baby sea monsters of the Master of the Rolling Horse God. There are 7 of them in total. Haha, I'm rich. After entering the nest of the Master of the Flowing Horse God, Wang Xian quickly found many treasures. Other than that, there were 7 baby sea monsters of the Master of the Flowing Horse God. Although the value of these babies was not as high as those tamed sea monsters of the Master of the Flowing Horse God, they were still worth a lot. Other than that, there was also an eternal elixir, which was also worth a lot. There was a saying in the competition between the water tribe creatures. The bigger fish would eat the smaller fish. It was a battle that was far more intense than that of humans. Let's go back and improve my strength first. Wang Xian did not stay here. He immediately flew out. This area was still too dangerous. Even if Wang Xian was careless, he would die. This was only the 2nd level of the underground sea. There were 10 levels in the entire underground sea. The deeper one went, the stronger the sea monsters became. The sea monsters in the entire Tianzi continent were stronger than humans. If it wasn't for the fact that the subterranean sea was more suitable for them to survive, the natural selection continent might have already been destroyed. The recent tens of millions of years have been slightly better. Humans had switched from technology to cultivation, and were getting stronger and stronger. Wang Xian's speed was very fast. Whenever he encountered an attack, he would immediately dodge it. He didn't stay for long. Along the way, Wang Xian encountered a few waves of humans who came to the underground sea for an adventure. Some of them were experts at the level of the Eternal Lord, while some of them were weak. Splash! Wang Xian rushed out of the water and flew straight into the sky. Only then did he let down his guard. It was much safer on the surface of the sea. He could see some cruise ships on the sea and flying cars and airplanes in the sky. Wang Xian flew into the sky and took out his artificial intelligence. A smile appeared on his face. Now he was going to sell the chief sea monster of the Miaoma god. The chief sea monster of the Miaoma god was not very big. It was about 10 meters in size and had the water attribute. It had reached the level of an eternal god. Their combat strength was not too big in the sea and the ground. It was just that they were closer to the sea. Such a pet mount was the ideal combat partner for many people. Tianhai Island Pet Egg Beast Taming Shop. Very soon, Wang Xian found information one by one. The Heaven's Choice continent was considered a relatively good continent in the entire bright world and the greater world. There was an immortal god king overseeing it. Most of the planet continents were not as prosperous as the Tianzhe continent. The Tianhai Island was an island in the northern waters of the Xiantian territory. At the same time, it was also one of the most prosperous trading grounds in the Xiantian territory. The entire island covered an area of 1,000 kilometers. People who entered the underground sea to search for treasures and hunt sea monsters would usually pass by here. Over time, a large number of people gathered here to trade. After 1,000,000 years, it had become a separate trading area. Even people from other parts of the Tianzi continent would come here to buy or sell items. There were pet eggs and beast taming shops here. As a continent with a population of 700 to 800 billion people, there were thousands of beast tamers in the entire continent, even though beast tamers were extremely rare. Naturally, there were beast taming shops too. Let's go to those beast taming shops and take a look. If I can sell it to them, it will save me a lot of trouble. Wang Xian moved his body and flew towards the Tianhai Island according to the navigation of the AI. Selling it directly to the pet shops and the beast tamers would save him a lot of time. As long as the price was not too low, Wang Xian would sell it. At the same time, he also wanted to check out the market. The Tianhai Island was not too far away from the northern coast of the Xiantian Academy. After flying for more than 2 hours, Wang Xian saw a huge island. The entire island was neatly divided into 5 zones. There were divine herbs, pills, weapons, formations, cultivation techniques, and the central core zone. Chapter 2250. 2252,250 for cooperation. Are you qualified? Go. Let's go to the central area. Wang Xian entered the entrance of the Tianhai Island and headed straight for the central area. There was a rule in the central area that the value of the items sold could not be lower than 6 wisps of divine fire. The value of pet eggs and tamed pets was relatively high. The entire Tianhai Island was very large. Even the central street was 1,000 meters wide. There were many luxurious shops on both sides. When Wang Xian entered the divine fire in the central area, the surroundings became even more luxurious. There were transparent glass windows, and the storefronts of the shops were slightly sci-fi. The luxurious interior could be seen from the outside. Every shop was emitting a powerful energy. There were many people on the road. Many of them were driving luxury sports cars. Although there were many cars, it wouldn't be crowded. A car was directly stored in his interspatial ring. Wang Xian walked on the road. His walking speed was much slower. However, he wasn't in a hurry. He walked around and looked at some other items. There were humans and other intelligent races on the road. It was an eye-opener for Wang Xian. There's a pet shop ahead. After walking for more than 10 hours, Wang Xian saw a pet shop. The pet shop was called the Neon Pet Shop. It was a somewhat dreamy name. The entire pet shop was decorated in a dreamy manner. The pink lights inside looked a little out of the ordinary. Wang Xian entered the shop, and just as he stepped into the door, he felt a light sweeping across his entire body. He felt as though he was being spied on. Huh. Wang Xian frowned slightly and looked to the side. Welcome. May I know what kind of pets you are buying? Are they for your friends or for yourself? Soon, a young and beautiful girl walked in and asked with a smile. Take a look. Wang Xian replied indifferently. Alright, please take a look. All the pets here are rare breeds, and they are very beautiful. The beautiful waitress introduced the pets to Wang Xian. Wang Xian took a quick glance at them and left immediately. They were all fancy pets. Although they were at the godly state level, they were basically docile pets. They were similar to domestic kittens and puppies. Wang Xian did not stay any longer and left immediately. Not only were they expensive, but they were also pets that he admired. After leaving the shop, Wang Xian checked the AI and continued walking forward. Bang, bang, bang. At this moment, a series of booming sounds came from the front. The sound was not a battle, but a firecracker. Wang Xian looked ahead. Beside a big shop, flowers were placed in a festive manner. This shop was much bigger than the surrounding shops. It occupied an area of at least 10,000 square meters. The entire shop was decorated extremely luxuriously. This was a newly opened shop. The most eye-catching part was the 2 lions in front of the shop. Each of the lions was 20 meters in size. They were lying on the ground, exuding a majestic aura. The 2 lions were comparable to the gods with 9 wisps of divine fire. House of War Beasts. This was the name of the shop. At this moment, many people in the surrounding rushed into the shop. There are god-level pets and such a precious war beast. Are you serious? There are god-level pets in this shop. There aren't many of them in the mysterious sky territory. Why would I lie to you? I heard that this shop is jointly opened by more than 10 beast tamers. There are master beast tamers behind them. Voices of discussion rang out one after another. Wang Xian's eyes flashed with interest. He immediately walked over and looked at the entrance of the shop. The style of the shop was slightly different from the surroundings. It had an ancient European style. Wang Xian walked into the shop. When he entered the shop, the feeling of being investigated came again. He took a glance and figured that it must be a kind of detector installed in all the shops. Senior, may I know if you wish to purchase a war pet? At this moment, among the more than 10 people who came in with Wang Xian, a waiter immediately walked toward a middle-aged man. She spoke with a warm expression. Wang Xian looked over and immediately sensed that middle-aged man, who was at the level of the Eternal Lord. What was the use of the detector at the entrance of the shop? Wang Xian thought to himself. A god-level powerhouse was considered ordinary here. However, an Eternal Lord-level powerhouse could definitely be called a powerhouse. There was a huge gap between a god-level powerhouse and an Eternal Lord-level powerhouse. Although Wang Xian's strength could be comparable to a level 4 Eternal Lord-level powerhouse, no one would be able to tell unless he unleashed his strength. Upon entering, Wang Xian realized that there were many rooms inside. The transparent glass room was very large, and there were many war pets lying on the ground. This house of war pets is completely incomparable to the neon pet shop. It can indeed be called a war beast. There were a total of 50 to 60 war pets in the huge shop. The lowest level was 5 wisps of divine fire. There were cubs and tamed adult war pets. The price is about the same as the group of young men I saved. It might even be more expensive. Wang Xian looked at the prices of some war pets. However, the pets in the House of War Beasts were still ordinary in Wang Xian's eyes. There are actually 10 level 1 and level 2 Eternal Lord level pets upstairs. Oh my god, this House of War Pets is too powerful. There are actually so many powerful pets. Eternal Lord level pets are usually auctioned at the auction. I didn't expect there to be a total of 10 of them here. At this moment, an incredulous voice was heard from the surroundings, causing many people in the shop to be shocked. Wang Xian also raised his eyebrows slightly. If you want to go up to the second floor, you will need the strength of an Eternal Master level, or 1,000,000 divine stones. A waiter in the shop reminded him. Some of the Eternal Master level powerhouses couldn't help but walk towards the second floor. As many people had said, such powerful war pets could only be seen in the auction house. This House of War Beasts was not simple. This beauty, could you please call your manager? I want to discuss a collaboration with your boss. When Wang Xian heard the exclamations and discussions around him, his eyes flickered. He walked to a waiter and said, "Huh." The waiter who was called by Wang Xian was slightly stunned. He sized him up with a face full of astonishment. "This our boss and the rest are outside. Why don't you go and look for our boss?" The female waiter hesitated for a moment and said to him, "All right." Wang Xian nodded and walked straight out. "You still want to negotiate with our boss, even though you haven't reached the level of a god lord. Do you think that everyone is as outstanding as our boss and the rest?" Seeing Wang Xian really walking over, the waitress muttered softly. Chapter 2251. 2251 2251. Are you qualified to talk about cooperation? Yes. Wang Xian could hear the muttering of the waiter clearly. Hearing her words, the corners of Wang Xian's mouth curled up slightly. It was very beneficial for them to be able to choose to cooperate with the House of War Beasts. If it wasn't for the fact that he was afraid of trouble, he could have opened a shop himself. Hee. Once we open this House of War Beasts, only the Divine Pet Pavilion can compete with us in the entire Sky Sea Island in the future. There are more than 10 beast tamers, and a master beast tamer behind the Pet God Pavilion. Compared to us, they are far inferior. Haha, in the future, when the entire Sky Sea Island purchases war beasts, they will definitely come to our place first. We have to thank Master and the others for their support. Otherwise, it would be a little difficult for us to get god-level pets. Now that Brother Feng has ignited 9 wisps of divine fire, our beast taming skills have improved greatly. With Brother Feng holding the fort, the House of War Beasts will be incomparably powerful. Wang Xian walked towards the entrance of the shop. He saw a few young men standing there proudly and chatting excitedly. Beside them, more than a dozen waiters and small leaders dressed in the uniform of the shop stood at the side respectfully. Wang Xian adjusted his clothes and walked over immediately. "Everyone, you guys are the owners of the House of War Beasts, right? I would like to discuss a collaboration with you guys." He walked straight over and spoke to the group of young men. The group of young men who were talking were slightly stunned. They turned around and looked at Wang Xian. The managers of the House of War Beasts were also slightly stunned. "Little brother, do you have a collaboration with our House of War Beasts? If it's a small business, you can tell me directly." A middle-aged man walked over and said to Wang Xian with a smile on his face. The young men sized him up and didn't say a word. After entering their House of War Beasts, as long as one had reached the level of the Eternal Lord, there would be a waiter serving them one-on-one. Wang Xian came in alone. It was obvious that he had not reached the level of the Eternal God Lord. How could they talk about cooperation? They really did not take it to heart. It was not that they were arrogant. If they had not reached the level of the Eternal God Lord, they could not be considered as experts. They did not have much resources. "I think it's better to talk to the bosses. My cooperation might be bigger." Wang Xian did not take their attitude to heart and continued talking. "Oh, what kind of cooperation do you want to talk about?" A young man saw that Wang Xian still wanted to talk to them and asked with a smile. "Pets. I wonder if your House of War Beasts accepts pets?" Wang Xian asked. Pets. Do you have pet eggs?" The young man was interested. "Pet cubs tamed war beasts." As Wang Xian spoke, he looked around and said, "If it's convenient, we can go to a separate area to talk." He had a lot of pets in his hands, but there were a lot of people around him, so it was not convenient for him to take out his pets. "A tamed war beast." The young man revealed a look of surprise. At this moment, a surprised voice sounded from outside. Some friends are here. Tianyuan Tianguang, and the rest are here too. Kujian is here. She's actually here too. Let's go, let's go." At this moment, the excited voices of a few young men could be heard from the side. "What?" The young man who was conversing with Wang Xian turned his head and looked outside. Not far away, 30 to 40 young men and women were walking towards them. Among them, 2 young men and a girl were walking in the middle. The girl in the middle was wearing a white and blue dress. Seeing the group of people leaving directly in front of him, Wang Xian frowned slightly. Those seem to be the heaven's favorites of our Xiantian Academy. I know that girl. She seems to be called Kujian. She is the famous goddess of Xiantian Academy. Did you see the pet cub on her shoulder? It's a six-eyed flying fish. It's a god-level pet. It's very precious. This house of war beasts seems to be opened by some prodigies of Xiantian Academy's beast taming school. Almost 90% of these prodigies can reach the level of eternal god level. The discussions around them started again. Wang Xian frowned and looked over. Not bad, Shizhengyang Shengguanzhihan. You guys actually opened such a powerful pet shop. At the front, Tianyuan and the rest looked at the huge shop in astonishment. Congratulations. Keijian smiled charmingly and said to them, Haha, thank you for coming to support us. Let's go, we'll show you the biggest and most powerful pet eggs on Tianhai Island. Shengguanzhihan, who came up to them, raised his head slightly and said with a smile, The biggest and most powerful? You're not proud at all. A few young men next to him said with a smile, Haha, we have 10 godlord level cubs and war beasts here. Let's go, I'll show you. I also hope that the senior and junior brothers will support us. Shi Jingyang smiled slightly and also said with a big smile, 10 eternal godlord level cubs? Everyone was slightly stunned, and a trace of shock flashed in their eyes. Then we have to go and take a look. Kujian's bright eyes flickered as she said with some anticipation, Goddess Jian, welcome. If you like any battle beast, I'll give you a discount. Everyone laughed and led them into the shop. Some of the people around looked over. The heavenly son of God of Xiantian Academy would be a big shot in the entire Xiantian domain in the future. People would pay attention to such a celebrity wherever he went. Everyone, I have some pets here. Do you have time to discuss a collaboration? Wang Xian saw them walking over. He hesitated for a moment and went up to greet them. Then he said to the young man who was talking to him just now. Oh, the young man who was talking to Wang Xian just now was slightly stunned. A look of hesitation appeared on his face. Ku Jian, Tian Yuan Gong, and the rest were stopped and looked over in confusion. If you have pets, our House of War Beasts can buy them at a 10% discount on the market price. We can also send people to sell them here. However, we will also charge 10%. This is also the price we will charge for pets in the future. It will be 0.5 points higher than the other shops. Alright, if you want to sell your pets, you can talk to the others in the shop. Excuse me. Shengguanzhihan frowned slightly when he saw Wang Xian standing in front of him. This is an ordinary acquisition. I'm talking about cooperation. Wang Xian shook his head when he heard what he said. Cooperation. Shengguanzhihan was stunned for a moment before he shook his head as well. You are not qualified to talk about cooperation. Let the elders in your family, who are at the level of the Eternal Lord, talk to us. Don't disturb our time. He spoke with slight contempt and walked straight ahead. He gently pushed Wang Xian, who was standing in front of him, with his arm, and led the group of senior and junior brothers into the room. Chapter 2252. 2252-2252. Are you qualified to talk about cooperation? Yes, Shengguanzhihan. Only seniors at the level of the Eternal Lord are qualified to talk about cooperation with you. Very strong. In the shop of the House of War Beasts, Shengguanzhihan led a group of young men and women into the shop. When they heard what Shengguanzhihan said to Wang Xian, they said with a smile on their faces, Haha, we are in the war beast business. Only the strong and powerful beast tamers can obtain powerful war beasts. Without reaching the level of a god lord, how can there be any good war beasts? What qualifications do they have to cooperate with us? Shengguanzhihan smiled nonchalantly. Around him, Shi Jingyang and the rest also nodded slightly. Their House of War Beasts had more than a dozen beast tamers, and they also had the help of their master. The war beasts and pets that they had prepared for the opening today could not be compared to any other house in the entire Tianhai Island. Even the Divine Pet Pavilion did not have as many powerful war beasts and pets as they did. If they wanted to talk about cooperation with them, they had to at least have the strength of an eternal god lord. Otherwise, you are not qualified. You are right. I really envy you. With this House of War Beasts, you can get more resources in the future and advance to the Eternal God Lord realm much faster than us. The young men who came to congratulate them nodded and said with slight envy. This made Shangguan Jahan and the others look proud and proud. Let's go, Jian. I'll bring you guys to see the war beast pets of the Eternal Lord level. We have a baby of the Eternal Lord level too here. Some of the young men fawned over the girls in the middle as they walked straight to the second floor. At the back, Wang Xian stood there in astonishment with a mocking look on his face. I don't have the qualifications. Wang Xian mumbled. Little brother, if you want to sell your pets, you can talk to us. The boss and the rest are a little busy. Please don't disturb our boss, we can handle it. At this moment, a middle-aged man walked to Wang Xian's side and said faintly, a young man who had yet to reach the level of a god lord. Not to mention that his boss didn't believe that he could have any powerful pets. Even he didn't take it to heart. If it wasn't for his work, he might not even bother with Wang Xian. Hehe. Wang Xian chuckled and walked straight out. Humph. Seeing how rude Wang Xian was, the middle-aged man frowned and snorted in dissatisfaction. Initially, I was thinking of cooperating with you guys. If you guys help me sell it, I can also help you guys gain fame. Now, Wang Xian walked out of the House of War Beasts. A cold glint flashed across his eyes as he scanned his surroundings. Why don't I open my own shop? However, it will be a little more troublesome this way. Forget it. If it's troublesome, so be it. At the very least, nothing else will happen. In the future, if the reputation of the shop starts to rise, I can totally sell it through the AI. If it's troublesome, it will be a little more troublesome in the early stages. It might not take more than a few days. Wang Xian mumbled and walked straight to the opposite location. It was unknown if it was a coincidence or his luck. There was an empty shop at the opposite location. It was written on the shop for rent. Contact via the AI. Wang Xian walked to the opposite side. The interior of the shop was not very big. It was only about 1,000 square meters. This shop was considered a very ordinary small shop in the central area. He took out the artificial intelligence system and immediately scanned the contact information on it. Through the artificial intelligence system, Wang Xian waited there for 5 minutes. The business of the House of War Beasts across the street was very good. Yes, I was the one who informed you. How much is the rent for this shop? Wang Xian nodded his head. Sir, this is the central area of the Sky Sea Island. The rent is relatively high. After chatting with the staff of the Tianhai Island, Wang Xian immediately paid the rental fee of 100,000 divine stones. 100,000 divine stones was not a small sum. The grade of divine stones was much higher than spirit stones. In this bright land, divine stones were the currency of the greater world. 100,000 divine stones could buy a pet with 6 wisps of divine fire. Wang Xian did not have divine stones, but he had some divine pills in his hands. They were also considered a common currency. If it weren't for you guys, we wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. You guys are really unlucky. Wang Xian looked at the location opposite him indifferently. He entered the shop and took a look around. In the past, this shop sold clothes. Of course, they weren't ordinary clothes. Instead, they were clothes made from the skins and fur of sea monsters and wild beasts that were at the godly state, or even the eternal divine lord level. Buzz. Wang Xian waved his arm. A simple modification was very easy for Wang Xian. The use of the 5 elements energy would soon change the inside of the shop. Wang Xian walked to the entrance of the shop and looked at the signboard on it. Splash. He waved his arm to remove it and took out a piece of metal from his interspatial ring. Buzz. Wang Xian waved his arm and placed the signboard on it. With a wave of his hand, 4 big words appeared on it. Dragon Palace's War Pet Shop. From the outside, the Dragon Palace's War Pet Shop looked ordinary. On the opposite side, it occupied an area of over 10,000 square meters and had the appearance of an ancient European luxurious building. There were clusters of fresh flowers placed at the entrance. Compared to the 2 powerful lions on the left and right, the difference was dozens of times. Wang Xian had set up the shop. It didn't have any special features, nor was it eye-catching. Only passers-by could see some of it. It's pretty easy to attract people. Wang Xian revealed a look of confidence on his face. He entered the shop and released the main sea monsters from the mother nest one by one. There were a total of 25 of them, including the 7 pups. Fortunately, these main sea monsters weren't very big. They were about 10 meters in size, and the height of the shop was very high. It was totally possible. A few of the careful main sea monsters were much smaller. They were only about 1 to 2 meters in size, and they looked rather cute. Other than these high-level ones, there were also some low-level sea monsters and war pets. There were more than a dozen sea snakes and sea turtles. The two of you, go to the entrance and attract customers. Wang Xian ordered the 2 sea monsters. Roar! The 2 first-level Eternal Master-level sea monsters let out a low roar and obediently walked to the entrance of the shop and lay there. Holy shit, these are the rank 1 Eternal Master sea monsters. Holy shit, be careful. That's not right. Why are they lying here? These 2 sea monsters have been tamed, and the mature rank 1 Eternal Master sea monsters have been tamed? Holy shit, stay away. These are god-level sea monsters, Dragon Palace battle pets? What's going on? Are they battle pets sold in this pet shop? As soon as the 2 sea monsters walked out, more than 10 passers-by broke out in cold sweat. This was an Eternal Godlord level sea monster in the underground sea. Chapter 2253. 2253 Dragon Palace's War Pets. As soon as they arrived, they saw 2 Eternal God-level sea monsters walking out of the shop. These people were not very strong. The highest among them had only lit 5 wisps of divine fire. They almost wet their pants when they saw the Eternal God-level sea monsters. If not for the 2 sea monsters lying on the ground, they might have run away. Now that they saw them lying quietly at the entrance of the shop, they looked at the shop behind the 2 Eternal God-level war pets. Dragon Palace War Pets. This pet shop is so awesome. It has tamed 2 adult Eternal God-level war pets, and is lying at the entrance to attract customers. There are only 2 9 Divine Fire war pets, lying at the entrance of the House of War Beasts that just opened. This is a god-level pet shop. Is this shop even more awesome than the House of War Beasts across the street? It's already very powerful for a pet shop to have a godlord-level pet shop. Let's go in and take a look. They hesitated for a moment, and walked into the shop. They carefully looked at the 2 sea monsters lying at the door. After seeing that they didn't make any movements, they walked to the door. When they got close to the shop, they felt a violent aura coming from inside. This made their expressions change slightly. This way. However, very soon, the people who came over widened their eyes and stared at the interior of the shop in disbelief. The shop was not very big, so they could see a part of it standing at the door. They saw many Eternal God-level sea monsters lying inside. At a glance, there were at least a dozen of them. And this was where they could see. The terrifying aura and pressure in the shop made them tremble. Those above the Eternal God-Lord realm, or 3 million divine stones, could enter. But others were forbidden to enter. At the entrance of the shop, there was a sign. There are many Eternal God-Lord ranked battle pets inside, and there's such a requirement. Only Eternal God-Lord ranked or 3 million divine stones worth people can enter. My goodness, when did this pet shop open? How could it be so powerful? How could there be so many war pets of the Eternal Lord rank in there? Shocked voices came from their mouths. They stood at the door and did not enter. They were not qualified to enter, and they did not dare to enter. However, this did not stop their curiosity and shock. This is the Master Sea Monster of the Rising Horse God. And this is the Master Sea Monster of the Rising Horse God that has been tamed. When did such a powerful pet shop appear on this street? There are 2 outside. Look inside. There are at least a dozen of them. No, FUCK, look inside. There are still a few Master Sea Monsters of the Rising Horse God. Did they fucking take down the nest of the Master Sea Monster of the Rising Horse God? This Dragon Palace's war pet is too powerful. It's way more powerful than the House of War Beasts. Soon, the 2 sea monsters of the coming horses attracted the attention of everyone who passed by. When they arrived at the entrance of the shop, they were even more dumbfounded. The voices of discussion rang out. In less than 3 minutes, More than 100 people gathered around the shop. As time went by, more and more people gathered around the Dragon Palace's war pet shop. Some young people looked at the adult Eternal God war pets with heated expressions. Some of them hesitated for a moment and began to contact their seniors. Eternal God Masters could be called experts. It was very difficult to fall at this level. An Eternal God Master had a lifespan of 1 million years. With an Eternal God Master in the family, they could at least stay safe for hundreds of thousands of years. It was not that easy to advance to the Eternal God Lord level. In less than 10 minutes, more than 1,000 people had gathered around. What's going on the other side? Why did I hear someone say that there are 20 to 30 Eternal God level war pets there? No way. It's a lie. There are 2 approaching horse god level divine beasts lying on the other side of the door. There are 20 to 30 Eternal God level war pets in the Dragon Palace war pet shop that suddenly appeared. The House of War Beasts had just opened today, and it had been advertised for a long time. There were many people who came to their shop specially. Many people didn't even enter the shop. Now that they heard that there was a stronger pet shop across the street, some people didn't believe it at first. But later, when they noticed some strong people walking towards the shop, they had to believe it. The distance of 1,000 meters was not too far. Some of them could not help but go over and take a look. Some of them also ordered their subordinates to go over and take a look. The news spread very quickly. There were indeed 20 to 30 god-tier war pets in the Dragon Palace pet shop across the street. And they were the Meow Ma sea monster. The Meow Ma sea monster was of water attribute and had a body size of about 10 meters. It was an ideal mount, especially when it entered the underground sea. It was extremely suitable. After they received the news, there was an uproar. They immediately rushed to the opposite side. There's a price on the wall. It's a one-time price. You can stay in the shop for 10 minutes at most. If you don't want to buy it, you can leave immediately. At this moment, Wuxia was sitting on a chair in the shop with a pot of tea beside him. He looked at the people who walked in and reminded them. The few Eternal Lord level powerhouses who had just entered were slightly stunned when they heard Wuxia's words. They looked at Wuxia, who was sipping his tea at the side. "You are the owner of this place?" A middle-aged man asked with some doubt. "Yes," Wuxia replied indifferently and didn't say anything else. 3 Eternal Lord level second level wild horse sea monsters, 22 Eternal Lord level first level wild horse sea monsters, and 7 pups. They must have found the lair of the wild horse. To be able to tame so many Lord level sea monsters, he must be a powerful beast tamer master. May I know who he is? An old man looked around with a burning gaze and asked Wuxia. "If you don't want to buy, get out." Wuxia spat out these 5 words coldly. He didn't have the time to exchange pleasantries with them. There was no shortage of people who wanted to buy Eternal Lord level battle pets. What was the point of talking so much with them? Huh? The old man was slightly stunned. His expression slowly turned ugly. "Young man, don't be so arrogant. Didn't your lord teach you to meet the master of Eternal God?" Roar! The old man said with a bad expression. However, before he could finish his sentence, he immediately sensed that all the sea monsters surrounding the Master of Eternal God had locked onto him completely. A low roar came crashing over. The old man's expression changed, and he quickly retreated outside. The rules and prices are written on the wall. Wuxia looked at the other Eternal Masters who were on alert, and reminded them lightly. Chapter 2254 2254 Dragon Palace's War Pets. The little boss here is so powerful. He left the shop without buying anything for 10 minutes. Also, we don't accept divine stones. He only wants divine pills and corpses of the same level. How can he sell more than 30 Eternal Lord level war pets at one time without a backer? There's no shortage of people to buy these war pets. They can be sold out in 2 days at most. It's not surprising that he's so powerful. However, the price of the battle pets in this shop is very suitable. It's much cheaper than the House of War Beasts across the street. At least 52 to 30 pills of the same level are needed there. Here, we only need 50 pills. In the shop, 4 to 5 Eternal Lord-level powerhouses brought a few people along. When they saw the scene just now and the price rules on the wall, they discussed in a low voice. Little brother, if you buy it, how about taming it? A middle-aged man stared at a sea monster with a hint of interest, and said to Wang Xian, "Taming the adult brambles gang. Raise the cubs yourself." Wang Xian said to the middle-aged man, "All right, I want one. I wonder when will you help me tame it?" The middle-aged man gritted his teeth and said, 10% of the deposit will be paid in 8 hours. I'll keep this for you. I'll help you tame it in 8 hours. Wang Xian thought for a moment and replied, "All right." The middle-aged man nodded and pointed to the one in front of him. "I'll take this one. Does his eternal kingdom still exist?" "Yes." Wang Xian nodded and waved at the main sea monster of the Omen God. The Omen God was lying in a corner of the room. Are you a beast tamer?" The middle-aged man was astonished when he saw the chief sea monster of the Eternal Celestial Master listening to Wang Xian's words. Such a young man didn't look like a beast tamer, no matter how he looked at it. To be able to tame the chief sea monster of the Eternal Celestial Master level 2, one had to have at least the strength of an Eternal level 3. In other words, one had to master 3 laws. Furthermore, he had to master the art of beast taming. It was much more difficult than the training of an array formation master. Such a young man was a beast taming master. If he didn't believe that he had mastered 3 laws, the others wouldn't believe it either. "If you want to wait, you can go upstairs and sit down." Wang Xian didn't answer him. Instead, he pointed upstairs. "I need to exchange for some divine pills." The middle-aged man saw that he didn't answer, and didn't ask any more questions. He took out the divine pills and handed them to Wang Xian before walking out. Since he was able to open such a pet shop, he wouldn't be greedy for 5 divine pills of the first level of the Eternal Lord, 3 second-level Eternal Lord, 22 first-level Eternal Lord, 7 first-level Eternal Lord cubs, 50 pills of the same level when they reach adulthood. The cubs need 10. After the middle-aged man left the shop, the people outside also received the news and knew the price of the Dragon Palace War Pets. When the price was announced, many people around were stunned. This price is much cheaper than the War Beast house across the street, and most importantly, there are 25 adult war pets of the Eternal God Lord level. A total suppression. There are 10 Eternal God Lords in the War Beast house, but only 4 adult war pets, and one of them is a snake. Discussions broke out. When the House of War Beasts opened just now, it was announced that it was very old, and it even opened the #1 pet shop on Sky Sea Island. Now that this Dragon Palace War Pet suddenly appeared, people naturally compared it. The difference was too big. Not only the quality of the War Pet, even the price could not compare to the Dragon Palace War Pet. Even a fool knew where to buy a War Pet. The discussions continued, and more people gathered around. At the opposite House of War Beasts, some staff members also noticed the situation, but they didn't know what was happening here. "Congratulations, senior son. This pet cub is given to your child. It will definitely grow up together with your child. When senior son's child reaches the Eternal God Lord realm, this cub will also reach the Eternal God Lord realm." Right at this moment, a burly middle-aged woman and a child walked out of the door of the House of War Beasts. The store manager of the House of War Beasts followed behind with a face full of enthusiasm and flattery. "Haha, good. In the future, if you have a suitable war pet, let me know." The burly middle-aged man laughed and said loudly, Of course. The war beasts produced by our House of War Beasts are absolutely the best and most comprehensive. Senior son is welcome to visit us in the future." The store manager said respectfully and enthusiastically. The person in front of him was a big customer. There had been many experts in the family for several generations. This time, they directly bought a level 1 Eternal God Lord cub for their son. It was so enviable. "Oh, an expert bought a war beast from the House of War Beasts? And it's an Eternal God Lord level 1. That's not wise. The House of War Beasts is much more expensive than the other side." "Exactly. That's a bit of a sucker. Besides, I think the baby sea monster of the Lord of the approaching horse god is quite suitable to be a mount. It's extremely cool and has an advantage when entering the underground sea. This expert might not know, but he's been killed. The few of them walked out of the shop under the respectful hospitality of the store manager and the waiter of the House of War Beasts, attracting the attention of some people. Hearing their conversation, some of the people around looked at the burly middle-aged man, looking like he was a sucker. The burly middle-aged man had comprehended 3 laws, so how could the discussions around him escape his ears? Hearing their discussions, he frowned slightly. What's the high price? Is there a pet shop across the street selling the baby sea monster of the divine horse god lord? He stared at a young man not far away and asked with a hint of imposing manner. Senior. The young man who was being stared at changed his face slightly and immediately called out respectfully. Senior, there is indeed a pet shop across the street called Dragon Palace War Pets. They have 20 to 30 war pets of the Eternal God Lord level. And the prices? He immediately said. When he talked about the price, he looked at the manager of the House of War Beasts and said, the price is much cheaper than the House of War Beasts. Much cheaper? 20 to 30 Eternal God Lord level war pets? The burly middle-aged man widened his eyes. Nonsense! Which pet shop in the entire Sky Sea Island can be compared to our House of War Beasts? I'm warning you, don't spread rumors and frame us here. Or don't blame our House of War Beasts for not being polite. When the shop manager of the House of War Beasts heard his words, an angry expression appeared on his face as he stared at him, and said coldly, I didn't spread rumors and frame you. If you don't believe me, you can ask the people around you. When the young man saw the fierce shop manager of the House of War Beasts, he raised his head and said angrily, That's right, senior, you'll know when you go to the opposite side. The opposite side is indeed cheaper than you, and there are more eternal god lords than you. Some people around immediately echoed. This caused the store manager's expression to change, and he looked at the opposite side in disbelief. There were over 1,000 people gathered at the opposite side, and it was obviously not groundless. Let's go over. The burly middle-aged man said to his wife and son with a gloomy face, and walked straight ahead. Chapter 2255. 2255 was about to go out of business when it opened? Go. I heard that several seniors have bought war pets. This is an Eternal God Lord level 1. The Horse God Lord Sea Monster is more suitable as a mount. Some experts are also envious of it. If I have money, I will buy one too. The threshold of this Dragon Palace war pet is too high. The Eternal God Lord level is 3 million divine stones. And I heard that it can only stay in the shop for 10 minutes. If you don't buy it, hurry up and leave. It's really awesome. The burly middle-aged man led his family over and listened to the discussions around him. He slowly frowned. He released his aura, and everyone gathered in front of him was slightly shocked. A senior is coming. The faces of all the people blocking the shop changed slightly, and they hurriedly made way. Behind the burly middle-aged man's family, the manager of the House of War Beasts also followed. At this moment his face was a bit ugly. Especially when he heard the discussions of the people around him, his heart sank. He had a bad premonition. After entering the entrance of the store, the burly middle-aged man swept his gaze past the 2 Eternal God Lord rank 1 sea monsters lying quietly at the side. Then he walked straight into the store. After looking at the notification at the entrance, he looked inside. The store was not big. There were more than a dozen people inside. They were not all Eternal God Lord experts, but they were all brought in by the Eternal God Lord. More than a dozen Eternal God Master level Miaoma sea monsters could be seen lying inside, and a few cubs were walking around mischievously. Let's go in, the burly middle-aged man said to his wife and children beside him, and walked straight in. Honey, look at the prices and rules on the wall. Once inside, the woman next to the burly middle-aged man pointed at the words on the wall and said, Price and rules. Price, adult battle pet, 50 pills of the same level cub 10 pills. This price was written very clearly. He glanced around and saw many powerful sea monsters lying on the ground. There were no injuries on their bodies, and they were all in the realm of eternal divine lords. A young man was sitting there sipping tea, quietly sitting there. There was no waiter to serve him, and no one to introduce him. He was very cool. The burly middle-aged man thought that this shop had the right to be so cool. There were more than 30 war pets of the Eternal Lord rank. It was probably very difficult to find a second shop in the entire Tianzi continent. Dad, this pony is so cute. I want this pony. The young boy next to the burly middle-aged man stared at a sea monster of the god lord of the approaching horse with a bright face. How is this possible? At this moment, the store manager of the House of Warbeasts, who had followed the burly middle-aged man in, widened his eyes and looked around in disbelief. He couldn't help but exclaim. His gaze finally landed on the young man who was drinking tea. His face was filled with disbelief. It was him. How is this possible? How is this possible? Let's go. The burly middle-aged man turned around and glanced at him. Without saying anything, he walked straight out. The store manager of the House of Warbeasts quivered and hurriedly followed behind. Senior son, listen to me. They are here. Shut up. The burly middle-aged man coldly spat out 2 words when he heard his words. He didn't want to say anything else. He was also at fault for buying at a loss. The war pet whelp he bought was an Eternal Lord Tier 1, which was equivalent to 54 Eternal Lord Tier 1 pills. For pills did not seem like a lot, but these were Eternal Lord Tier pills, which were very valuable. It was just that the value of the pet whelp was too high, which made the pills appear cheap. Even an Eternal Lord Tier 1 powerhouse would not be willing to casually consume pills of this level. A pill worth hundreds of thousands of divine stones? What a joke. The burly middle-aged man did not want to say anything. After all, he had just bought it less than 5 minutes ago. Otherwise, he would really be taken as a sucker. He was not someone to be bullied. The burly middle-aged man walked towards the House of Warbeasts with a sullen face. The store manager of the House of Warbeasts wiped off the cold sweat on his forehead and immediately followed behind. He did not dare to say anything now. The other party was an Eternal God Lord level expert. For Eternal God Lord level 1 elixirs could buy several of his lives. The burly middle-aged man entered the House of Warbeasts and walked straight to the second floor. Haha, Shengguan Jahan, Shi Zhongyang, Eternal God Lord level warpets. Tiangong Tianyuan, and the other 2 brothers bought another one. You sold 2 today. It's a big deal. What big deal? I sold the Tiangong Tianyuan brothers at a discount. It's a big loss. This price is only for the 2 brothers. Haha, you're very particular. Today the 2 of us will treat you. The burly middle-aged man had just entered the second floor when he heard voices talking. His face didn't have the slightest fluctuation as he walked toward Shengguan Jahan and the others. Senior son, why are you back? Do you need anything? Shi Zhongyang was the first to notice him coming over. His face was filled with confusion, but he still spoke enthusiastically. We don't want this billow bear. Please return the divine stones. The burly middle-aged man handed the young cub that the woman was carrying to them and said coldly, What's wrong, senior son? The cubs of the pet shop opposite are cheaper than yours by more than 1,000,000 divine stones. I'm not a sucker. I'm withdrawing. Shi Zhongyang opened his mouth and said, but was immediately interrupted by the burly middle-aged man. Shengguan Jahan and Tiangong Tianyuan were slightly stunned. There was shock and astonishment on their faces. How could it be, senior son? Our prices are very fair, and we have 10 to choose from. How could it be? Alright, the other party has 20 to 30 divine stones. I have bought them for less than 5 minutes. You can check them and return them. Shengguan Jahan quickly went forward to explain, but he was still interrupted by him this time. Moreover, this time the burly middle-aged man's tone was a little cold. His divine stones did not come from a strong wind. More than 1,000,000 divine stones was not a small amount of money. 20 to 30? That's impossible. Besides, there is no pet shop across from us. Senior son, don't joke. Shi Jingyang immediately widened his eyes and said loudly, "Boss, there is indeed a pet shop across from us. And this is real." The store manager quickly walked up and said with a pale face, "What?" Shi Jingyang and Shengguan Jihan were in disbelief. They clearly didn't see a pet shop across the street this morning. How come there was one now? And there were 20 to 30 god lords. How could this be? They could get 10 because of their master and elders. Return the god stones first. However, you can go to the other store to have a look. With your price and quality, you won't be able to sell them." The burly middle-aged man said coldly from the side. "All right, senior, here you are." Shengguan Jihan gritted his teeth and immediately returned the divine stone he had just received to him. He would talk about it after he understood the situation. Let's go and buy it from the other side." The burly middle-aged man snorted and directly walked out. Shengguan Jihan, Shi Jingyang, and the others' faces were as gloomy as blood. "Boss, that pet shop was opened by that young man, the young man who came to us for cooperation." At this moment, the manager of the House of War Beasts growled in a low voice with an uncertain expression. Chapter 2256. 2256 was about to close down when it opened. What? How is this possible? When Shengguan Jihan, Shi Jingyang, and the others heard the store manager's words, their eyes widened in disbelief. They stared at the middle-aged store manager in disbelief. However, seeing the bitter expression on his face, it didn't seem like he was lying to them. Moreover, he didn't dare to lie to them. Everyone's faces kept changing. Even Tianyuan and Kujian were full of surprise. "Let's go and take a look," Shengguan Jihan and the others said in a low voice with gloomy faces, and walked out with gloomy faces. "Hey, senior, there are many Eternal God Lord level battle beasts in our shop. Don't you want to consider it?" As soon as the group came down, they saw a waiter speaking to an Eternal God Lord ranked senior with a bitter expression. However, the other party didn't even bother with the waiter and walked straight out. The shop that was filled with people just a moment ago was now empty. When they looked outside, they could see that there were quite a number of people gathered in front of the opposite shop, and it even affected the traffic. When Shengguan Jihan and the others saw this scene, their expressions became even more awkward. They all walked towards the opposite side. "Make way, let's go over." There were too many people, and they were not god-level masters. They could only shout, It's the people from the House of War Beasts. Those few seem to be the owners of the House of War Beasts." "It's true. What are they here for?" "Of course they're here to take a look. If they don't, they might go out of business. Today is the first day of business for the House of War Beasts. It's advertised as the largest pet shop with the most advanced war beasts on the Sky Sea Island. What's the result? There are 20 to 30 Eternal Lord level war pets in a small shop of Dragon Palace. That's 20 to 30. That's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that the price of the Eternal Lord level war pets in the House of War Beasts is much cheaper than that in the House of War Beasts. I say that if the House of War Beasts doesn't lower the price, they can close the shop today. No one will buy from them." Close the shop? The price of the war pet of the House of War Beasts is almost the same as that of the God Pet Pavilion. The main thing is that the price of the war pet of the Dragon Palace is relatively fair. There is no premium. The group of people walked into the shop. Some of them recognized Shengguan Jihan and the others, and they were discussing in low voices. Hearing their conversation, Shengguan Jihan, Shi Jingyang, and the others looked even more embarrassed. Close down and close the shop. They finally arrived at the entrance of the shop. When they looked into the shop, their pupils slightly shrank. They could see that there were more than a dozen adult-level Eternal God Lord-level sea monsters. Without hesitation, they immediately walked into the shop. Roar! As soon as they stepped into the shop, they heard a low roar. Those who enter the shop must either have the strength of an Eternal God Lord, or have 3 million divine stones to prove that they are rich. A young man's voice sounded from behind. "You need 3 million divine stones to enter the shop?" Everyone's expression changed slightly. This shop was comparable to some luxurious auction houses, and they needed to verify the qualifications. 3 million divine stones was not a small number. However, they could still take out this amount of money. Shangguan Jahan took out 3 million divine stones and gestured for the sea monster to lie down at the entrance. TSK, this eternal god lord level sea monster has been tamed so cleverly. It's really powerful. It's definitely the work of a powerful beast tamer. Some people outside the door saw this scene and sighed. This is definitely the work of a very powerful beast tamer master. Shi Jingyang's gaze swept over and repeated with a solemn face. An adult battle pet requires 50 pills of the same level. Shangguan Jahan, Shi Jingyang, the price you're selling is indeed too expensive. At this moment, the disgruntled growls of the Tianyuan brothers could be heard from the side. Their tone was filled with displeasure. Huh? Shangguan Jahan and the others were slightly stunned. They raised their heads and looked forward. When they saw the rules on the wall in front of them, their expressions slowly turned ugly. Now, they finally knew why Senior Sun had come to return the goods directly. This price was indeed much cheaper than theirs. Also, the sea monsters of the Miao Ma were more suitable for mounts. There were a total of 20 to 30 choices. Under such circumstances, how could anyone come to their house of war beasts to buy pets? Brother Shangguan, look over there. It's that young man. It's really that young man. At this moment, the young man who was talking to Wang Xian in the shop at the beginning extended his finger and pointed at Wang Xian's position. He widened his eyes and roared in disbelief. It's him, it's really him. When they looked over, their expressions instantly turned extremely ugly. Ku Jian and the rest also looked over. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. It was this young man who came to the House of War Beasts to look for Shangguan Jahan, and the rest for a collaboration. In the end, Shangguan Jahan and the rest didn't give a damn about him. They even said that he wasn't qualified. At that time, even they thought that the other party wasn't qualified. But now, not qualified. The other party directly opened a small pet shop across the street. It was enough to shut down the House of War Beasts. Cough cough. Looking at Wang Xian, Shangguan Jahan, Shi Jingyang, and a few other young men looked extremely embarrassed. Back then, Wang Xian said that he would come over to discuss a collaboration with them. In the end, he did not put the other party in his eyes at all. However, what they never expected was that the other party actually had so many war beasts. Every war beast is extremely precious. He must be deliberately attacking our war beast family by setting such a price. He must be taking revenge. Looking at the price written on the wall, Shi Jingyang's expression changed as he clenched his fists and said, "The war beast pets of the eternal god lord level were extremely precious. Even if they were to sell them at their own prices, they were confident that they would be able to sell all the war beasts within 3 to 4 days. As for the 20 to 30 war beasts here, they would be sold out in a few days after their reputation spread. They could sell them at a price similar to theirs, but they sold them at a low price. In their eyes, they were deliberately looking for trouble with them, deliberately suppressing them. This made them extremely furious. Wang Xian didn't know what they were thinking. If he knew, he would definitely think that they were overthinking things and deliberately suppressing them. They were not worthy of it. Since Wang Xian had opened his own shop, he would unify the prices and sell them at the same price in the future. He would not increase or decrease the price. He would not set the price too high. It was more or less fine. After all, the number of Eternal Lord level battle pets that he would sell in the future might reach thousands, or even tens of thousands, or even more. Let's go and have a talk. Shangguan Jahan looked at the few people beside him and walked toward Wang Xian with a gloomy face. The few of them walked to the front of the seats and took a deep breath. My friend, I think we can talk. If you don't want to buy it, get out immediately. You are not qualified to talk about anything else with me. Shangguan Jahan forced a smile on his face. However, before he could finish his words, Wang Xian raised his head and looked at him as he said indifferently, Chapter 2257. 2257 2257 Formation Curse. You guys don't have the right to talk to me about anything else. Wang Xian's indifferent words entered their ears, allowing the rest of the people in the shop to hear it clearly. Shangguan Jahan and the rest really didn't have the right to talk to Wang Xian. They hadn't even reached the realm of Eternal God Lord. In Wang Xian's eyes, the House of War Beasts was just average. It was far inferior to his Dragon Palace's war pets. The other party was not qualified. Upon hearing Wang Xian's words, Shangguan Jahan and the rest's faces changed and their bodies trembled. They were not qualified. He said they were not qualified. Their breathing was a little hurried. Their expressions changed drastically as they stared at Wang Xian. Huff huff. Now, we want to discuss a collaboration with your Dragon Palace's war beasts. Shangguan Jahan suppressed the anger in his heart and spoke again. Let's not talk about it anymore. Since I've already opened my shop, I'm not going to collaborate with anyone else. Wang Xian immediately rejected the offer. What a joke. Initially, Wang Xian could find a pet shop to collaborate with in order to save time. Now that he had opened his shop, let's do it. Just now, he said that he didn't have the qualifications. Now he still wanted to reap the benefits. How could it be so easy? You are deliberately suppressing us. We have just started our business, and you opened a shop opposite us. Did you plan this beforehand? Shi Jingyang couldn't hold it in anymore. He clenched his fists and shouted at Wang Xian with a ferocious expression. In order to open the House of War Beasts, they had used up all their resources. Now that the Dragon Palace's war pets were opened, it was a huge loss for them. If the other party could continue to open the shop, they could only lower the price or close the shop. Either way, it would be a huge loss for them. Roar! However, as soon as he finished speaking, he felt half of his body being bitten off. What are you doing? What are you doing? A terrified voice came out of Shi Jingyang's mouth. As he felt the aura of the wilderness behind him, his face instantly turned extremely pale, and his eyes were filled with fear. Let your pet put him down. I'm warning you. We are students of the Xiantian Academy. If you harm us, our academy will not let you off. When Shangguan Jahan saw that Shi Jingyang was being bitten, his expression changed instantly. He shouted at Wang Xian sternly. Everyone in the shop looked over. Their eyes were sparkling. Hee. A bunch of little gods came here to question others. Aren't they courting death? An eternal lord-level powerhouse took a glance and saw that the sea monster wasn't really biting. He said to Shangguan Jahan and the rest with disdain. There were more than 20 eternal lord-level battle pets here. Wouldn't they be courting death if they came here to look for trouble? You're not a customer, and you're still looking for trouble. Scram! Wang Xian said. The head of the sea monster that was biting Shi Jingyang swung, and his body flew out. Splash! At the same time, it wagged its tail, and a stream of water swept up Shangguan Jahan and the rest. The powerful binding force made them hold their breaths. What are you doing? The expressions of Tian Gong, Tian Yuan, Ku Jian, and the rest of the unexpected disaster changed drastically. Soon after, they felt their bodies falling heavily towards the outside. Bang! A group of people were thrown to the door. The people in front of the door were stunned by this scene and made way for them. What's going on? Could it be that the people from the House of War Beasts went in to look for trouble and were thrown out by the boss? It should be. The House of War Beasts is a little unlucky to encounter such a situation when it just opened. If we don't lower the price, it will be closed. More than a dozen people flew out and fell to the ground. The surrounding people immediately recognized them and discussed among themselves. Ku Jian fell to the ground. Her face was embarrassed and red. She hurriedly stood up. She never thought that the other party would actually throw them out directly. Facing an eternal god lord level sea monster, they simply had no power to resist. Even if they were all elites of the academy. Hearing the discussions and finger-pointing around her, her expression became even more unsightly. Shangguan Jahan and the others' faces were extremely ferocious, and their bodies began to tremble. They were actually thrown out directly falling to the ground. If the students of the academy knew about this, they would be extremely embarrassed. Not only was the newly opened pet shop being suppressed, they were also thrown out by others. Hoo-hoo! Everyone's faces turned red. Shangguan Jahan, Shi, we don't want to buy any more pets. Let's go. Tian Yuan and his brother's expressions changed. They looked at the Dragon Palace's pet shop, gritted their teeth, and left with a gloomy face. A pet shop could sell 20 to 30 eternal god-level pets. No one would believe that there were no experts supporting them. With their strength, what else could they do if they were thrown out? Take revenge. Moreover, it was all because of Shangguan Jahan and his gang. The war beasts that were sold to them were said to be at a discount, but in the end, they were not even as cheap as the original price. They were already unhappy, but now that they were thrown out again, they did not have the face to stay here. They said coldly, "Turn around and leave." Kei Jian's expression didn't look good when she was thrown on the ground. She left without saying anything. Crack, crack, crack. When Shangguan Jahan, Shi, and the others saw the heavenly engineer Yuan, Ku Jian, and the others leave with ugly expressions, they clenched their fists and made cracking sounds. They stared at the Dragon Palace's pet shop in front of them with shame and anger, their eyes full of anger. Do you really think we are easy to bully? Throw us out directly. Shangguan Jahan, Shi, and the others growled in a low voice. Brother Shangguan, I can't take this lying down. Not only did they suppress us on purpose, but they also humiliated us like this. Beside them, a young man's face was also filled with anger. They had been in high spirits this morning, building the largest pet shop on the entire Tianhai Island. In the end, not only had they been suppressed, they had even been thrown out of the door and thrown on the ground. After all, they were outstanding disciples of the Xiantian Academy's Beast Tamer School, and the future of the Eternal God Lord was within their reach. How could they be willing to be humiliated like this? I'll go look for my teacher, Shi. You go look for your grandfather. You guys go and call him over too. Shangguan Jahan said with a gloomy face. They had spent a lot of money to open this shop, and this shop also had the support of their elders. Otherwise, with their strength, how could they possibly get an Eternal God Lord level pet? Now that they were being suppressed and humiliated, they could only look for their elders. Only their elders could contend with the other party's strength. Although the mysterious Sky Territory had its own laws, the game between the strong could be carried out as long as no one was killed, and no one was killed. The strong could intimidate the weak. Moreover, they felt that the other party might be targeting their elders. Otherwise, how could it be so coincidental? They just opened the other party's business, and the price is lower than theirs. It must be premeditated. Chapter 2258. 2258 2258 Array Formation, Curse Art. Who? On the second floor of the House of War Beasts, Shangguan Jahan, Shi, and the others were standing on the second floor. They looked at the other side through the window, and their faces were extremely unsightly. There was no one else. The entire House of War Beasts was fucking empty. The Dragon Palace's war pets were right across from them. Even though they were so close to each other, all the guests had gone to the other side. Unless they lowered the price now. However, they were not in a position to decide on the price. It was up to their elders to decide on the Eternal God, Lord level war beasts. Damn it, everyone in our class knows about this. Soon the entire Beast Tamer school will know about it. Many people are laughing at us. Suddenly, a young man looked at the AI in his hand and roared with a gloomy expression. The natural selection continent was very big, but it was also very small. With the development of technology, it formed an internet circle. Some things could be quickly spread. As for the matter of the Tianhai Island's War Beast House, it was neither big nor small. There were also many people who paid attention to it. Now that such a situation had occurred, it was immediately spread. Now, it was actually spread within the circle of friends in their class group. This was a huge loss of face for them. They were all heaven's favorites. This time, many people would inevitably ridicule them from behind. The young man's words caused the expressions of Shengguan Jahan, Shi Jingyang, and the others to turn ugly as well. Wung 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 wung. At this moment, the space around them trembled, and a figure slowly appeared. Master! Teacher Han! Seeing the middle-aged figure that suddenly appeared, Shengguan Jahan and the others hurriedly turned their heads and called out respectfully. N. The middle-aged man looked at them with an expressionless face. He slowly walked to the front of the glass and looked forward. Is it the shop across the street? The middle-aged man said in a deep voice. It's Master, the Dragon Palace's war pet. We just opened today, and they opened their shop for us at such a low price. They are obviously trying to suppress us. When we went there, they threw us out and threw us to the ground. They didn't give us any face at all. Shengguan Jahan walked to the middle-aged man with his head lowered and said with some grievance. Oh, I don't think they are targeting you. You are not qualified enough. If they wanted to target you, they would have killed you in secret. The middle-aged man was also a little confused. The House of War Beasts had just opened, and they had opened a shop at the entrance and sold it at a low price. They were obviously targeting them. Targeting Shengguan Jahan and the others? It was obviously impossible. They could get so many Eternal Lord-level pets. If they wanted to kill them, they could easily kill them in secret. Could they be targeting me or? The middle-aged man's eyes flickered. At this moment, he slowly turned his head, and an old man's figure slowly appeared. Elder Shi, let's go and take a look at the other side. An old man's figure appeared, and the middle-aged man said indifferently to him. All right, let's go and see who dares to go against us. Humph. The old man seemed to be in a bad mood, and his face was filled with a cold expression. Grandfather. Shi Jingyang walked over and immediately called out. Let's go. The old man replied with a solemn face and walked straight down. They were the ones who provided the Eternal God Lord level battle beasts in this House of Battle Beasts. Although this House of Battle Beasts was opened by Shengguan Jahan and the others, they were the ones behind it. Firstly, it was to help their own kid, and secondly, it was a part of their family's business. If they were targeted, they naturally had to investigate. If the other party really wanted to make enemies, they wouldn't be afraid. Grandpa, let's go to their shop. That sea monster Lord Miaoma bit me and threw me out. Grandpa, you have to stand up for me. Shi Jingyang said as he walked beside the old man. Don't worry, our Shi family isn't afraid of trouble. The old man said coldly. The group of people walked straight into the Dragon Palace's pet shop. That's a member of the House of War Beasts. Who are the middle-aged man and the old man in front of them? They should be the backers of the House of War Beasts. The House of War Beasts is able to produce an Eternal Lord-level war beast. They must have a very deep background. That middle-aged man seems to be a teacher of the Mysterious Sky Academy and the Beast Tamer Academy. He has a very high status. Some people around them looked surprised when they saw them coming. They threw the members of the House of War Beasts out just now. They must be looking for trouble. Some people whispered among themselves. The fact that the members of the House of War Beasts were thrown out of the shop was not good for the reputation of the House of War Beasts. Dragon Palace's war pet Humph. When the group of people arrived, the curious people around them made way for them. The old man looked at the signboard in front of him, snorted lightly, and walked straight in. The middle-aged man and the old man entered with a look of astonishment on their faces. Our luck is really good. We should be able to take down the lair of the sea monster Lord Miaoma. The middle-aged man said indifferently as he sized up the surroundings. Teacher Han, you. Hee hello. At this moment, a skinny middle-aged man recognized the middle-aged man and wanted to go forward to greet him. When he saw their formation, his eyes flashed with a smile. Okay. The middle-aged teacher nodded at the strong man. Grandpa, it's that guy. At this moment, Shi Jingyang, who was at the side, stared at Wuxia with a face full of anger. He was almost peed in his pants when he was bitten by the Miaoma sea monster. The old man and the middle-aged mentor looked at each other and walked straight towards Wuxia. Wang Xian also noticed them when they came in. He frowned slightly when he saw this group of people. This is troublesome. It was already troublesome to open a shop, and someone was looking for trouble. Call the person behind your Dragon Palace's war pet over. The old man walked over and said to Wang Xian directly. The person behind. When Wang Xian heard their words, he raised his eyebrows slightly and smiled mockingly. If you don't want to buy it, get out immediately. Don't waste my time. He shook his head and said indifferently. Kid, didn't you hear what I said? The old man's face turned cold, and an aura surged out from his body. The aura that belonged to the 4th level of the Eternal Lord suppressed Wang Xian. Roar! Roar! In an instant, the entire shop was filled with a terrifying pressure. In the shop, one after another, the sea monsters of the Eternal Lord let out a low roar. They were a little agitated and violent. Shut up! The middle-aged mentor swept his gaze across the surroundings. His body emitted an aura that resembled that of the king of all beasts. All the sea monsters of the Eternal Lord let out a low roar as their bodies trembled. They lay there trembling. The middle-aged man was also at level 4 of the Eternal Divine Lord. Their strength was not weak even in the entire natural selection continent. When the customers in the shop saw this scene, they stood by the side and didn't say a word. A teacher from the Xiantian Academy and a beast tamer master. They didn't dare to get involved either. Both parties weren't easy to bully. Wang Xian sensed their aura, and his face turned cold. He stood up slowly. Chapter 2259. 2259 2259 Formation. Under the curse spell. The middle-aged mentor and the old man were filled with astonishment when they saw Wang Xian standing up despite their pressure. Only those of the same level or stronger could stand up under the pressure of the two of them. Kid, you don't have the right to talk to my master and the rest. Call out the person behind you. Shangguan Jahan, Shi Jingyang and the rest said with cold faces. All of you better scram immediately. Boom. Wang Xian heard their words and looked at the two arrogant middle-aged men. His face was filled with a cold expression. His body trembled, and his peak aura burst out directly. The peak-level aura charged straight at them. This. The moment Wang Xian's aura burst out, the expressions of the middle-aged man and the old man changed slightly. They hurriedly protected Shangguan Jahan, Shi Jingyang, and the rest who were beside them. How is this possible? His aura. At this moment, Shangguan Jahan, Shi Jingyang, and the rest who sensed Wang Xian's violent aura had a drastic change in their expressions. They could not help but let out a cry of surprise. How was this possible? How could this young man have such a terrifying aura? Their eyes were wide open, and their foreheads were filled with cold sweat. If it was not for the middle-aged man and the old man who were blocking in front of them, the aura would have suffocated him. I didn't expect us to be wrong. The pupils of the middle-aged man and the old man constricted slightly, and a solemn expression appeared on their faces. They did not expect that such a young man would actually have a strength that was comparable to theirs. No wonder his expression didn't change under their imposing manner. Scram immediately. Wang Xian stared at them and shouted again with a cold expression. My friend, may I know why you want to make an enemy out of the House of War Beasts? The middle-aged mentor restrained his imposing manner and stared at Wang Xian as he asked. Make an enemy out of you? You guys think too highly of yourselves. Ask your disciples about some things. If you don't leave now, I won't be polite anymore. Wang Xian narrowed his eyes slightly and said coldly. You're welcome. Why? Do you still want to suppress the two of us? Hee. Although your strength is beyond our expectations, this is not something you have the ability to cause trouble for us. The old man said with a cold expression. Then we will send you out. Wang Xian moved his arm and instantly transformed into a ferocious and terrifying dragon claw. He grabbed at the old man and the middle-aged man in front of him. You. The old man's face changed drastically when he saw Wang Xian making a move instantly. It was forbidden to make a move on the Tianhai Island. Once it was discovered, even the Eternal Lord would be severely punished. Especially when they came to other people's shops to cause trouble, their responsibility was even greater. However, the one who made the first move would also be severely punished. This fellow. Holy shit, he made a move, he actually made a move. My goodness. The owner of the Dragon Palace pet is this young man himself. He has such terrifying strength. He has comprehended 4 laws. This young man's strength is not weaker than Teacher Han and the others. He dares to make a move directly? This owner has a bad temper. Isn't he afraid of being punished? The faces of the Eternal God Masters in the shop changed slightly. They hurriedly flew out to avoid being affected. What's going on? Is there going to be a fight inside? Everyone who was gathered outside sensed the aura inside. When they saw the Eternal Lord-level powerhouses who came out in a hurry, their faces were filled with shock. Do you really think that we are afraid of you? The old man did not expect Wuxia to make a move. He waved his arm and used the golden shield to block the dragon claw. He roared coldly. Do you really think that I'm easy to bully? Wuxia stared at them with a cold gaze. The old man and the middle-aged mentor looked extremely embarrassed. If they were to fight today, they would have to pay a heavy price. As for Shangguan Jahan and Shi Jingyang, who were standing behind them, they were completely dumbfounded at this moment. They did not expect that the young man was the boss. They did not expect that he had the strength of a level 4 Eternal Lord. Seeing the young man's attack, their faces turned pale. The other party was an Eternal God Lord rank expert. It was a piece of cake to kill them in the dark. Even the surveillance system of the natural selection continent was hard to detect. In an instant, the entire shop was filled with a terrifying energy. The atmosphere was somewhat solemn. A great battle could break out at any time. Stop. No fighting is allowed on the Sky Sea Island. If it's serious, kill without mercy. At this moment, a voice came from outside. A few middle-aged men in uniforms walked over and shouted into the shop. Teacher Han, don't break the law. You know the price of fighting here. The 5 people walked in and heaved a sigh of relief when they saw the situation inside. The enforcer in the center clearly recognized the middle-aged teacher and said indifferently, "We know that the other party made the first move. We will leave immediately." The middle-aged mentor retracted all his imposing manner and nodded his head. The old man also retracted his imposing manner. Are you new here? Don't you know the rules here? The enforcer in the middle looked at Wuxia and reminded him. If someone comes to cause trouble, they must pay the price. Wuxia also retracted his imposing manner and said indifferently, HMPH, if you are not targeting us, we will not hold back. The middle-aged mentor and the old man stared at him and warned him. After that, the 2 of them turned around and left. Shangguan Jahan and the rest followed behind them hurriedly. At this moment, they were extremely frightened. Open the shop properly and don't cause trouble. The enforcer scanned the surroundings and left after giving them a reminder. Humph. Wuxia watched them leave and scanned the surroundings. When he saw a few of the cubs looking dispirited, he snorted coldly, and a cold glint flashed in his eyes. Are you leaving just like that after causing trouble? A cold glint flashed in his eyes. With a move, he appeared upstairs. He opened his palms, and a few strands of hair appeared in his hands. These strands of hair belonged to the middle-aged mentor and the old man. You want to leave after provoking me? It's not that easy. Wuxia mumbled. Heaven formation, is this curse of yours effective? He waved his arm and started to set up a formation in front of him. This formation was several times more complicated than the previous one. With your current strength, even though it's not enough to kill him, you can definitely injure him severely. The god of heaven formation replied. All right. Wuxia nodded his head faintly. The formation was slowly taking shape. Formation, a curse spell. This was one of the categories of formations. It was also the most mysterious and bizarre category, a curse spell. By casting a curse spell, one could attack from a very, very far away place. Furthermore, one could not find the person who cast the spell, nor could they find evidence of the other party casting the spell. Killing was prohibited in the Tianzi continent, and assassinations were illegal. However, if law enforcers wanted to capture someone, they had to have evidence. Being silent and traceless was a curse. Chapter 2260. 2260 was silent and traceless. That kid doesn't look old. He has comprehended at least 4 laws. What a surprise! The middle-aged tutor and the old man walked out of the Dragon Palace's mount, their expressions ugly. Eldersher, do you know that person? Is he coming for you? The middle-aged tutor looked at the old man and asked with a slight frown. Me? The old man shook his head. This is the first time I've seen that kid. Do you have any enmity with him? Find someone to investigate that kid's background. If he dares to cause trouble again, let him know what will happen to him. The middle-aged teacher shook his head and said with a somewhat cold gaze. The old man beside him nodded, his eyes filled with a cold light. The two of them were not afraid of each other. So what if they were enemies? Move aside. Move aside. It seems like a fight almost broke out. The young boss of the Dragon Palace's war pet is not weaker than Mentor Han and the others. Is he suppressing the family of war beasts on purpose? But even if he is suppressing them, it is a good thing for many people. Some people outside the Dragon Palace's war pet discussed among themselves when they saw their group coming out. Some God Lord level experts' eyes also flickered. They also didn't expect that young man to be so strong. This grudge has been formed. That young man's temper is too explosive. Let's directly fight. Some experts thought to themselves. No fighting is allowed on the Skysea Island. Before fighting, consider the price you have to pay. The enforcer who walked out of the shop glanced at everyone around him and reminded him lightly. Formation, blood ring explosion. At the same time, on the second floor of the shop, Wang Xian spent a total of 30 seconds to set up the curse of blood ring explosion. The time taken to set up the curse was even slower than the time taken to set up the attack formation. It was impossible to use it in a battle. However, the power and strangeness of the curse spell went without saying. Looking at the complete formation of the battle tactic, Wang Xian's dragon eyes of yin yang and the 5 elements swept across the ground in front of him. His eyes revealed a hint of coldness as he continued to set up the formation. At this moment, the middle-aged mentor and the old man walked out of the shop with cold faces. They were ready to return to the House of War Beasts. However, all of a sudden, a scream came out from the old man's mouth. Then, everyone saw a large amount of blood oozing out of the old man's body. The blood made a strange cracking sound. What's going on? In an instant, the middle-aged mentor's face changed drastically, and he immediately looked at the old man. Eldersher, what's going on? Grandpa. The middle-aged mentor's face changed slightly, and Shi Jingyang's face was also filled with horror as he shouted loudly. No, I don't know. Blood flowed out of the old man's face, and he looked extremely terrifying. His face was filled with vigilance as he scanned his surroundings. Aha! Screams of pain came out of his mouth, causing the expressions of everyone around to change slightly. What's going on? How did an eternal god master level expert suddenly become like this? Hiss, what happened? Did someone attack that senior? Everyone in the vicinity looked over, their faces filled with fear as they looked at the old man. What's going on? The expressions of the 5 enforcers also changed slightly, and they immediately walked around the old man. Pa pa pa. Ah! The sound of blood exploding rang out once more, and the old man couldn't help but let out a low roar of pain. What's going on? Is he poisoned? The middle-aged mentor's expression changed slightly, and his aura erupted as he examined the old man's body. Ah! Suddenly, the middle-aged mentor also let out a painful cry. His body trembled, and drops of blood flowed out of his body. Not good, master, what's wrong with you? Shangguan Jahan hurriedly ran over and shouted. I feel a terrifying power suddenly entering my body. The middle-aged teacher hugged his head, blood slowly flowing out of his face, looking incomparably savage. He gritted his teeth and roared in a low voice, his eyes filled with terror. This is a curse, an array formation curse. There's absolutely no mistake, it's a curse. Suddenly, an eternal god lord level expert beside him saw this situation and roared in a low voice with a solemn expression. Curse! Everyone's hearts turned cold. In the field of array formations in the Tianzi continent, because of the existence of the mysterious sky territory's son of heaven divine king, the Tianzi continent's array formations could be considered very good. Many cultivators had some understanding of array formations. The array formation curse technique was definitely the strangest of all offensive techniques. It was silent and traceless. It could attack you directly from a distance of tens of millions, or even billions of kilometers. Moreover, you still don't know who attacked you. A powerful curse could instantly kill people. Everyone's expression changed when they saw the old man and the middle-aged teacher. A curse? Was this a curse? It was actually so terrifying that it caused so much pain to the two eternal god masters, who had mastered 4 laws. How could there be a curse? How could my master and the others be cursed? Shangguan Jahan looked at his master, who was extremely miserable, and said in panic, "How could there be a curse?" Some people murmured. Suddenly, someone turned around and looked at the Dragon Palace's pet shop. Their eyes were shining. The two of them had just come out from the Dragon Palace's pet shop and had been cursed for dozens of seconds. Only the young master of the Dragon Palace's pet shop could have done it. Although they couldn't be sure, 80% of it was done by the owner of the Dragon Palace's pet shop. It must be him, it must be the young man inside. The Lord of Law Enforcement caught him. Shi Zhengyang also thought of this possibility at this moment. He looked at the 5 law enforcement officers, pointed at the Dragon Palace's pet shop, and shouted loudly. This! The 5 enforcers frowned slightly. The other party was obviously an eternal divine lord level powerhouse. It was obviously against the rules to arrest someone without evidence. Let's go to Xiantian Academy. Let's go find the array formation powerhouse of Xiantian Academy. The middle-aged instructor endured the intense pain in his body and growled at the old man. Then, he immediately flew toward the academy. All right. The old man nodded. He looked in the direction of the Dragon Palace's war pet with a bit of fear in his heart, and followed closely behind. The others could guess it, and they understood it even more clearly. This was almost 100% the work of that young man. However, at this time, they didn't have time to think about revenge. Instead, they wanted to solve the problems in their bodies as soon as possible. They could sense that although the curse couldn't kill them, it could severely injure them. This injury would take at least several decades to recover. They hoped to quickly solve the curse on their bodies. Seeing the 2 experts leave quickly and the blood on the ground, everyone was a bit dazed. Many people saw the eternal god lord level experts in such a miserable state. Dragon Palace battle pets continue to be sold. Hurry up and buy them. At this moment, a voice came from the Dragon Palace battle pets. Everyone's hearts shook. Chapter 2261. 2261 2261 names spread far and wide. Dragon Palace battle pet. In front of the shop, everyone looked at the pet shop in front of them. It seems that the boss of the Dragon Palace battle pet was the one who cast the curse. Absolutely. If it weren't for him, he would have come out to explain. After all, he had offended someone. The boss of the Dragon Palace battle pet is not simple. He knows the curse. Who would dare to provoke such an enemy? Some people looked at the Dragon Palace's war pet shop with reverence in their eyes. Even the eternal lord level experts were filled with fear. Everyone had witnessed the scene just now. Such a strange scene caused even the experts who had mastered the 4 laws to be heavily injured in an instant. They had no ability to resist at all. The enforcers stood there helplessly. They had no evidence at all. Once they provoked such a person, they would not even know how they died. Even those who were stronger than them had to consider the consequences before provoking such a person. Those who had mastered 5 or 6 laws had to retreat when they encountered such a person. This was because he could not kill you, but he could curse your family and friends. Under such a strange curse, the weak could not withstand it at all. Gulp. Hearing the discussions around them, Shengguan Zhihan and Shi Xingyang's faces turned pale. If the formation curse had appeared on them just now, they would be dead for sure, 100% dead. Thinking of their teacher's miserable state, the few of them trembled, their eyes filled with fear. Let's go and see how Master and the others are doing. Shengguan Zhihan glanced at the Dragon Palace's battle pets with some fear, and immediately flew towards Xintian Academy's location. The price in the Dragon Palace's battle pet shop is quite fair. Come, let's go in and buy some. Some Eternal God Lord level experts hesitated for a moment before entering the pet shop. They did not have any conflict with the owner of the Dragon Palace's battle pets. On the contrary, they were still customers, and the other party would not use a curse on them. A group of experts entered and bought the sea monster war pets one by one. What happened to the Dragon Palace's war pets quickly spread to the Sky Sea Island. Not to mention the strange curse, just the value of the war pets was enough to cause quite a stir in the Sky Sea Island. More and more experts who had received the news walked toward the Dragon Palace's war pet shop. I thought the House of War Beasts would be a trouble, but I didn't expect the House of War Beasts to be even more troublesome. The price is much cheaper than ours. Damn it, this has a great impact on us. It has a great impact. The House of War Beasts is open for business for one day. Unless we lower the price, there won't be any business. The House of War Beasts is just a small shop. There shouldn't be an endless supply of pets, right? If that's the case, it will be a devastating blow to our pet god pavilion. Let's wait and see first. If the other party really has an endless supply of pets, then we'll have to prepare our countermeasures. Two old men stood on a street, slightly frowning as they looked in the direction of the Dragon Palace's battle pets. The two slowly conversed, and finally left with a bad look on their faces. This curse is extremely mysterious to begin with. There are only a few people in our natural selection continent who know the curse. We can't undo this curse either. Perhaps the headmaster can. However, at this moment, in a courtyard of the Heavenly Academy, an old man with a compass in his hand spoke to the middle-aged teacher with a grave expression. However, this curse isn't fatal to all of you. Furthermore, the effect of the curse is basically over. The old man continued speaking. Master Jing, even if it's not fatal, such a serious injury would require decades of recovery. Elder Shi said with a bitter face. Although the curse spells on their bodies were not fatal, it would take decades for them to recover naturally. Unless they spent a large amount of resources to recover quickly, it would consume too much. Recover slowly. I'm afraid that the other party will continue to curse you. But don't worry too much. Spellcasters can only continue to curse after they have obtained your hair and flesh. The hair and flesh consumed by each curse will directly dissipate. The old man holding the compass said, his eyes shining. Who have you offended? If this curse falls on you, you'll be able to withstand it. If it's lower than your strength, you might have a chance of dying. 99% of it is that young man from the House of War Pets. Elder Shi and the middle-aged teacher looked at each other and said with a gloomy face. A young man from the House of Battle Pets? An array formation master, who knows how to cast curses, is very dangerous. I'll get someone to check it out. The old man holding the compass raised his eyebrows slightly. Then I'll have to trouble Director Jing. The middle-aged instructor said respectfully. It's all right. We need to pay attention to such a person. The old man holding the compass shook his head and took out his artificial brain to mobilize his strength. The Mysterious Sky Academy was the ruler of the entire Mysterious Sky Territory. The entire Mysterious Sky Territory revolved around the Mysterious Sky Academy. The headmaster was the supreme ruler of the entire Mysterious Sky Territory. Directors like them also had a lot of power. It was fine to ask the law enforcement department to help investigate a person. However, they didn't have the authority to enforce the law. The middle-aged tutor and Elder Shi endured the intense pain on their bodies and waited quietly by the side. Although they were extremely fearful of that young man, They were not willing to not take revenge. Master. Grandfather. Director Jing. Not long after, Shangguan Jihan and Shi Jingyang came over and entered the courtyard to call out respectfully. And sit down. The old man holding the compass nodded. Shangguan Jihan and Shi Jingyang were the heavenly sons of the mysterious Sky Academy, and the old man understood them very well. The teachers were also more polite to people who had a high chance of stepping into the eternal Divine Lord realm in the future. There's news. At this moment, the old man holding the compass said something. When he saw the contents of the AI, he was slightly stunned. Director, what's the identity of the other party? The middle-aged teacher immediately asked. Let's end this matter here. He is a new teacher of our mysterious Sky Academy, Director Jean. Who brought him here? The old man holding the compass said directly. What? Is he our academy's teacher? Dean Jean brought him here? The middle-aged teacher and old Shi's expressions changed slightly, and Shangguan Jihan and the others were also surprised. If you provoke the other party first, then let it go. The other party will not do anything if he knows your identity. The old man holding the compass waved his hand at them, indicating for them to leave. It's Dean Jing we know. The middle-aged teacher nodded his head and frowned slightly. Since the other party was also a teacher of the Heavenly Academy, it was impossible for them to borrow the strength of the academy to take revenge. There were more than 10,000 teachers in the academy, and there were conflicts between the teachers as well. However, this conflict couldn't be carried out in a killing manner. If they were to assassinate the other party, they would definitely die if they angered the principal. Chapter 2262. 2262 reputation spread far and wide. The owner of that Dragon Palace battle mount is actually the Academy's teacher, Teacher Han. Don't tell me that our injuries have been in vain. Walking out from Director Jing's residence, Elder Shi said with a slightly ugly expression. The other party is the Academy's teacher. The principal has a rule. If there are any teachers who secretly kill each other or assassinate each other, if they are discovered, they are to be killed immediately. If there is a huge grudge between the two of you, you can settle it on the life and death arena. The middle-aged teacher said with a grim expression. Who would dare to violate the principal's words and the principal's rules? In the entire Black Heaven domain, the principal was the most respected person. Anyone who dared to cause trouble was a scoundrel, and the principal could destroy them with a single finger. No one would dare to violate the rules, not even the teachers of their academy. Just forget about it. The injuries on my body will take at least a few decades to recover. It will take too much of my energy to recover quickly. Elder Shi was unwilling to give up. Don't even think about it on the surface, unless we meet the other party in the underground sea and kill him. However, it's too difficult for us to kill someone of the same level as us. If the other party gets hold of us, we'll be dead for sure. There are over 10,000 teachers in the academy, and there are quite a number of them who don't have good relations with one another. However, it's usually their students who compete with one another. Sigh. This is too humiliating. The middle-aged teacher had stayed in the mysterious Sky Academy for over 10,000 years, and he was extremely clear about the rules of the academy. With the principal suppressing this place, even if there were grudges between the teachers, they wouldn't kill each other. As a result, the grudges between the teachers would extend to the students, and the students would compete with each other and fight in the arena. Under such circumstances, the academy didn't stop them. On the contrary, it encouraged them. This kind of atmosphere would instead allow the students to possess fighting spirit and a strong heart. For the sake of their students, some teachers would even encourage their own students to fight with others. Damn it! The other party knows how to use curses, and we are the ones who are the unlucky ones. I won't participate in this matter anymore. Elder Shi roared with an extremely ugly expression. He wasn't a teacher of the academy, so he could forget about taking revenge in the future. They could only accept this loss. I accept it as well. The other party knows the art of curses. The middle-aged teacher shook his head helplessly. Just let it go. At the back, Shangguan Jahan, Shi Jingyang, and the others opened their mouths and spoke with extremely embarrassed expressions. This time, they had lost a lot of face. Speak, how did you offend that young man? Suddenly, the middle-aged mentor looked at Shangguan Jahan and asked coldly. Master, Shangguan Jahan saw the mentor's expression, and his face instantly turned pale. Tell us. The middle-aged mentor also spat out a word. We didn't offend him either. When he first came to us to talk about cooperation, we thought he was a weakling and ignored him. But we didn't expect him to open a pet shop across from us. In the end, when we went there, we were thrown out. Shangguan Jahan didn't dare to hide it and quickly said, Humph. When the middle-aged mentor heard his words, his face was extremely gloomy. It seemed that his disciple had provoked the other party, and they thought it was aimed at them. This time, it was a disaster for them. Bastard. Pung. From the side, Elder Shi's palm landed on Shi Jingyang's body, causing him to fall to the ground. Grandfather. Shi Jingyang's expression changed drastically, and he instantly spat out blood. Do you know that you almost caused our Shi family to provoke a terrifying enemy? Elder Shi's expression was gloomy. Damn it, damn grandfather. Grandpa, I. Shut up. Go to the front line and fight for a month. You can only come back after a full month. Elder Shi interrupted him and growled coldly. You go too. The middle-aged instructor also said coldly. Elder Shi, I'm going back first. After saying that, he looked at Elder Shi and disappeared. Elder Shi nodded and disappeared, leaving behind two pale-faced Shangguan Jahan and Shi Jingyang. At this moment, their faces were a little pale. Go to the front line. They murmured, looked at each other, and swallowed their saliva. Going to the front line, there was the risk of death. It's all because of that guy. It's all because of that guy. Shangguan Jahan clenched his arms in anger. Then what can we do? Cough, cough. Shi Jingyang also growled with a face full of unwillingness. Go to the front line. The conflict between the teachers has extended to the students. The two of them were silent for a few minutes before Shangguan Jahan suddenly said coldly, Let's talk about it after we return from the front line. Shi Jingyang clenched his fists tightly. Wuxia did not know about the incident at the House of War Beasts. Even if he did not take it seriously. If those two were reckless, Wuxia did not mind killing them directly. As for the rules of the Xian Heaven Domain, even if he were to kill someone in the Xian Heaven Domain, Xian Tianzi would still protect him. He might even destroy the other party. The backing that the Celestial Emperor of Heaven's formation had found for Wuxia was no joke. With Xian Tianzi's character, even if Wuxia were to destroy the heaven in the mysterious sky territory, he would probably not do anything to him. After all, Xian Tianzi was able to reach this stage because he had a lot to do with the Celestial Emperor of Heaven's formation. Although he was not his master, he could be considered half a master. Therefore, Wuxia was a little unscrupulous. After the troublemakers left, the business of the Dragon Palace's war pets picked up. More and more experts knew about the Dragon Palace's war pets, and rushed over one after another. The price of an Eternal Lord level war pet was still fair. This was something that many people were fighting for. Boss Wang, I want this one. At this moment, about 10 people had gathered in the shop. They had already bought their war pets, and were waiting for Wuxia to help them tame them. Alright, we are done for today. We will continue to open tomorrow morning. I will help you tame your war pets first. Wuxia waved his arm and closed the door. He led the group of Eternal Lord level powerhouses upstairs. The group of sea monsters followed behind him. It was not difficult to help them tame them. No matter how wild the desolate beast sea monsters were, they possessed considerable intelligence. They were also more intelligent than intelligent dogs. By helping them build a good impression of them, they could give them the lair of the ancient horse god sea monster. This was the most important point. By placing the ancient horse god sea monster's lair into their divine kingdom, it would be able to suppress their battle pets. In addition, after a long period of time, The battle pets had familiarized themselves with the aura of their master's divine kingdom. The lair was also suppressed, so they basically did not dare to resist. If its master treated the war pet better, the war pet would also follow the battle wholeheartedly. The process of helping to tame the war pet was very smooth. One war pet took about an hour, and a total of 10 hours to tame the last person. Thank you, Boss Wang. I wish Boss Wang a prosperous business in the future. The last Eternal Lord level powerhouse sat on the body of the sea monster Lord of the Rolling Horse, God with a face full of excitement, and congratulated Wang Xian. There's no need. If you want to buy pets in the future, you can come to the Dragon Palace's war pets. Wang Xian said with a smile. Oh, Boss Wang, your war pets will be sold out in 3 to 4 days at most. What else? The middle-aged powerhouse was slightly stunned as he asked curiously. Of course. Wang Xian nodded. I will inform the AI in the future. Chapter 2263. 2263 ignited 9 wisps of divine fire. The technology of the natural selection continent could kill an expert at the level of an eternal god lord. This killing represented a true killing, the kind that couldn't even escape. With the development of technology, life was also much more convenient. Online shopping wasn't rare in the Tianzi continent. With online shopping, there were naturally online promotions, especially for shops in the central area of the Tianhai Island. All of them could be promoted and notified individually on the Tianhai Island's internet. They could even advertise if they had the money. Normally, when an auction house was going to auction, they would advertise on the artificial intelligence of the Tianzi continent. Wang Xian didn't need to advertise. He only needed to issue a notice. When he was helping the Eternal Lord level powerhouses tame the Lord of the Horse God Sea monster, some people also told him how to advertise. In fact, he didn't need to advertise too much. These powerhouses who were buying war pets would also help Wang Xian advertise. After all, in the entire Tianzi continent, there were not many shops that could buy Eternal Lord level war pets. Most of them were auctioned at the auction. It was inevitable that the price of the war pets would be higher at the auction. In the future, Wang Xian could make an announcement on the AI first. He could also make a reservation on the AI. Out of the 32 sea monsters, Wang Xian had sold 10 of them. Among them, 7 were adults and 3 were cubs. This was only the first day that the Dragon Palace's war pets had just opened. When more people knew about it, the sales would be even faster. After helping to tame the 10 sea monsters, Wang Xian continued to open the shop. Following that, Wang Xian spent 3 days to sell all the remaining war pets. During these 3 days, the Dragon Palace's war pets were considered to be well known. More than 30 Eternal Lord level war pets were sold in one go. There was only one shop that could produce so many war pets. Boss, I heard that you have Eternal Lord level war pets here. Just as Wang Xian was about to close the shop, a middle-aged man suddenly walked in. Huh? Wang Xian was slightly stunned. He looked at the middle-aged man and felt the majestic aura in his body. He was slightly surprised. This middle-aged man had comprehended at least 7 to 8 laws. He was considered a top-notch expert in the entire Tianzi continent. There was a huge gap in the Master God realm. There was a gap of 3 to 4 levels. You had to be careful, because you might be killed instantly if you weren't careful. You wouldn't even have the chance to escape back to the eternal divine kingdom. Of course, one could still react if they were alert in advance. Not for the time being. There will be more in a while. When the time comes, the Dragon Palace's pet shop on the AI will inform you. Wang Xian said to him. Huh? Is that all? The middle-aged man looked disappointed. There will be more in a while? What level? I'm not sure. Let's wait for the notification. Wang Xian shook his head. Add on the AI. If your Dragon Palace's pet has an Eternal Master level pet, inform me in advance. The middle-aged man took out the artificial intelligence and said to Wang Xian. All right. Wang Xian nodded. He naturally likes such potential customers, and it would save him a lot of time. Name, Wang Xian. Race, Yin Yang 5 Elements Divine Dragon, Mandragon Unity. Level, 9 Wisps of Divine Fire. LRB 5th Transformation of Divine Evdragona Transformation Shin. Divine Crystal, 1817. 7354 billion/5000 billion. Divine Ability, Ruling the Water Tribe. Ruling the Water Tribe below one's level. Devouring Creatures to extract Divine Crystals. Control of the 5 Elements. Cultivation Method, Divine Dragon Transformation. Divine Ability, Soul Absorbing, Spirit Attaching, Yin Yang 5 Elements Dragon Eyes. Aspect, 5 Elements Millstone, Dragon Kingdom in the Palm, Dragon Head under the Sky, Dragon Body of 10,000 Miles, Yin Yang Poles, Yin Yang 5 Elements Alms Bowl, Divine Dragon Tail Swing. Divine Kingdom, Dragon Palace. Dragon Palace owned level 6. Dragon Palace members, 159,633. Few. After taking all the pills, Wang Xian took a deep breath and looked at his attributes with a smile on his face. After igniting the 9 wisps of divine fire, the next step was to become the eternal divine master. There was no such thing as the peak of the divine realm when a divine dragon broke through. Once he became the eternal master, he would have the power to fight against a master who had mastered 7 laws. The current him could fight against a master who had mastered 5 laws. His strength was not weak even in the Tianzi continent. Buzz. Without any hesitation, Wang Xian immediately set up the bloodline connection formation. He wanted to find out the whereabouts of Lan Qingyue and Sun Lingxiu. This time he was still disappointed. If I still can't find them after advancing to the realm of the Eternal Lord, I'll go to other planets to take a look. Wang Xian made up his mind. I'll rest for 2 days and continue to go to the underground sea. The next time I go, I'll find all the resources needed to advance to the realm of the Eternal Lord. However, I want to advance to the realm of the Eternal Lord. I want to upgrade the Dragon Palace by another level. As he thought to himself, he went back to his room and laid on his bed to rest. After staying in the underground sea for a day, he was lucky enough to find the lair of the Miaoma sea monster. After staying in the Sky Sea Island for 4 days, he sold all the sea monsters. In 5 days, Wang Xian's strength had received a huge increase. After resting for 2 days, he continued his journey. Mount Xiantian. At the center of the Xiantian territory was the mountain peak where Xian Tianzi, the headmaster of the Xiantian Academy, and the strongest person in the Xiantian territory, was located. This was also the place where the descendants of Xiantian lived. The so-called descendants of Xiantian were the honorific titles for the descendants of Xian Tianzi. Great-grandma, what's going on? Why did you call us beauties here? At this moment, in a luxurious manner at the foot of a mountain peak of the Xiantian mountain, a beautiful woman said to an old woman with a smile on her face. Hee hee, good news, good news. The old woman was holding a walking stick in her hand. She looked energetic, but her age was definitely not less than 700,000 to 800,000 years old. What good news, great-grandmother? Why did you call us girls over? Why didn't the men at home come over? A beautiful woman walked over and said with a smile on her face, We'll talk about it when they're all here. We'll talk about it when they're all here. The old woman pretended to be mysterious as she shook her head. Aunt is here. At this moment a voice sounded. A woman came in from the entrance. The woman was wearing a blue armor that covered her entire body. Her body was filled with an imposing aura that was not inferior to that of a woman. She held a long spear in her hand, and her temperament was extraordinary. Aunt! Some of the girls immediately went forward and shouted at the girls. N, why did great-grandmother call me here? The front line is still quite nervous. The woman smiled at the group of girls and said to the old woman, Little umbrella, you're not young anymore. It's time for you to find a man to marry. The old woman looked at the woman and said with a smile, Humph, I can marry, but first those men can defeat me. The woman was slightly stunned, and then she snorted and said with some disdain, Great-grandma, most of the people are here, right? Why did you call us here? A girl couldn't help but ask. There were 50 to 60 sisters and aunts around. It's nothing serious. I'm not sure about the details of the patriarch's order. A disciple of a friend of the patriarch came to our place a long time ago. The patriarch said to let him marry into our family and bring you there to have a look. The old woman said. However, as soon as she finished speaking, the girls in front of them were completely stunned. Chapter 2264. 2264. What's going on? Stupefied. The 50 to 60 girls in the courtyard were all stupefied. The progenitor's friend's disciple wanted to marry into their family. What was going on? All the single girls from the mysterious sky descendants were somewhat stunned. Then why did he call them here? This great-grandmother. Then why did he call us here? A girl stammered as she asked, Great-grandmother, could it be that you want us to take a look at that person and marry him if he or she takes a fancy to you. A girl's eyes widened as she said. The group of girls frowned slightly. Was this a blind date for them? It's more or less the same, but... The old woman smiled. All of you dress up. If the other party takes a fancy to one of you, you should cultivate a good relationship with him or her. What? What? When all the girls heard this sentence, they were completely dumbfounded. Great-grandma, what did you say? He will marry whichever one of us he takes a fancy to. This. One of the girls could not help but exclaim in surprise, and her expression changed drastically. The other girls also stared at her closely. What was this? An arranged marriage? With the open environment of the Heaven Selection continent, and the fact that they were descendants of the mysterious Sky clan, there was no need for an arranged marriage. As the women of this generation, every one of them was talented, beautiful, and had extraordinary strength. Which one of them was not being pursued by tens of thousands of boys? It was not an exaggeration to say that tens of thousands of boys were pursuing them. Their status was equivalent to that of a princess of the mysterious Sky clan. If they married them, they would be married to a princess, and they would be the prince consort. Now they were actually being asked to go for an interview. Whichever young man took a fancy to, he would marry them. What? What was this? Great-grandmother, how is this possible? Are you joking? What do you think we are? Choosing one of us to be his wife. Is he choosing a concubine? A girl said with an embarrassed expression. Don't be so unhappy. That young man is also very outstanding. He has the strength of an eternal God Lord at the same age as you. And he should be quite good-looking. The old woman said with a smile. What outstanding, outstanding, outstanding? Why would he want to marry into our family? A girl said with an unhappy face. Great-grandma, I'm still busy at the front line maybe. The girl in the blue armor in the center frowned slightly and said to the old woman. I know your thoughts, but this is the order of the God King. The old woman looked at the group of girls and wiped away the smile on her face as she said seriously. Her words caused all the girls to fall silent as their pupils constricted slightly. The godly monarch's order was also an order from their patriarch. Their patriarch had lived for millions of years. They were known as the descendants of the mysterious heavens. There were more than 100 generations between them. The patriarch was a stranger to them. Many of them had only seen the patriarch more than a dozen times. Who dared to resist the old ancestor's order? Refuse? Run away from the marriage? The old ancestor didn't even need to say anything. The elders above him would take action. This action wasn't as simple as a simple punishment. No one could bear the price. For a moment, the group of girls bit their lips tightly. There was no longer the laughter from before. Even the girl in the blue armor was silent. Resist. Maybe even his parents would be implicated. The bloodline was still there, and the kinship was still there, but it was much smaller. The patriarch, who was used to seeing his descendants die, no longer cared about many things. You girls don't have to be like this. Marrying that young man might be very beneficial to you. After all, unless an extremely heaven-defying talent can be noticed by the patriarch, that young man with good talent is a good choice. The old woman saw the expressions on the girls' faces and said slowly, Oh! Upon hearing the old woman's words, some of the girls' eyes indeed shone. It was true that the patriarch had personally given the order. Presumably, if the patriarch paid attention to that young man, then no matter what happened in the future, no one in the Black Heaven domain, or even the Heavenly Swamp continent would dare to provoke him. That, great-grandmother, is that young man handsome? A girl asked in a low voice. Hee. I'll bring you to meet him and get to know him. Don't be so afraid. Marriage is a matter of mutual affection. If you don't like that young man, and don't give him a good look, will he still choose you? He's quite proud to be able to cultivate to the level of a formation master at such a young age. The old woman continued. You're right. All the girls heaved a sigh of relief. Since they did not give him a good impression, the other party should not insist on not letting him go. Let's go. I'll introduce you to him. The old ancestor did not say that he wanted to get married right away. As the old woman spoke, she waved her arm forward, and a black hole appeared and directly stepped into it. The rest of the girls followed her immediately. The girl wearing the blue armor frowned. She moved and took off her armor to avoid being conspicuous. The group of girls passed through the black hole and arrived at the entrance of the academy. Then they flew into the back forest. Before the old lady went there, she obviously knew that he was inside. The arrival of the group of girls attracted the curiosity of many students. However, when they saw the old lady in front of them, no one dared to ask or follow her. "Is little brother Wuxia around? Sorry to bother you." The old lady brought a group of girls to the front of the backyard. Her voice was transmitted into the backyard. "Huh? Who is it?" Wuxia, who was resting, revealed a puzzled expression when he heard this voice. His body moved, and he came to the backyard. He opened the door. "Old lady, who are you?" Sensing the energy contained in the old man's body, a hint of surprise flashed across Wuxia's eyes. He glanced at the back and asked, "The dean sent this old lady over." The old lady sized up Wuxia and realized that the strength she sensed was only 9 wisps of divine fire. She was also slightly puzzled. "Senior Xiantianzi?" Wuxia asked and gestured for everyone to enter. "Everyone please come in." "Okay." The old lady nodded and walked into the courtyard. A group of girls followed behind. They sized up Wuxia one by one. Some of the girls heaved a sigh of relief. It was obvious that they didn't reject the handsome and dashing Wuxia. "Little brother Wuxia, these are the outstanding girls of the descendants of Xiantian, who have yet to get married. Please get to know them." The old lady entered and introduced him directly. Wuxia was slightly taken aback. A look of astonishment appeared on his face. What did she mean? "The dean said that little brother is going to marry into the Xiantian territory. So he brought you here to see which one you like to cultivate your relationship with." The old woman saw his puzzled expression and continued to speak. Cough, cough. When Wuxia heard her words, he couldn't help but cough. Damn, what's going on? This fellow Xiantianzi really wanted him to marry into the Xian heaven domain. He even brought people here for him to choose from. 50 to 60 people? What's going on? Old woman, that's not right. Is it really good for this madam to do this? Chapter 2265. 2265 at the bottom of Tianzi continent. This senior. I will inform Senior Xiantianzi about this matter. They should go back first. Wuxia looked at the old lady speechlessly and shook his head. Hee little brother, don't be shy. I can't disobey the orders of the headmaster. We, the descendants of Xiantian, have 50 to 60 outstanding ladies in the entire Xiantian territory. The old lady smiled and said to Wuxia, "There's really no need. My main focus is on cultivation now. I don't want to be disturbed by other things." Wuxia continued to shake his head. The old lady was a little stunned. Then she immediately said, "How about this, little brother? Leave a contact information with them through the AI. You can talk to them privately." Wuxia's mouth twitched when he saw her acting like a madam. However, he raised his eyebrows slightly. This group of girls should be potential users of the Dragon Palace's war pets. All right. Wuxia nodded and projected a contact information. "Girls." The old lady gestured to the group of girls. "You say you don't want it, but your body is very honest." One of the girls looked at Wuxia and walked up to him. She took out her AI and added her contact details. You're not bad looking." Another girl walked over and giggled at Wuxia. Wuxia's face turned black. He felt that it was not them who chose them, but them who chose him. The group of girls did not have a bad impression of Wuxia's actions. They did not have the impression that he was sizing them up. The 50 to 60 girls added in very quickly. "As long as you have a way to contact them, little brother Wuxia, if you like any of them, you can contact them more. As long as you like them, we can make the decision. Then, we won't bother you anymore." In order to avoid Wuxia's embarrassment, The old lady left with her people with a smile. Wang Xian watched them leave and shook his head speechlessly. This Wang Xian is not bad. He is very young and very handsome. Not bad, not bad. How come 13th sister has her eyes on him? Hee hee, you can pursue him if you like him too. What nonsense are you talking about? HMPH, my standards are very high. However, this Wang Xian is indeed not bad. It's just that I don't know who he will contact in the future. We have to keep in touch with him. If he finds anyone, let him know immediately to prevent him from stepping on multiple boats. That's right. Let's see who he is looking for to chat with. We sisters have to be careful. As soon as they walked out of the courtyard, the group of girls started chattering. Even the old woman at the side was speechless. She moved and left immediately. Do any of you girls know about the Dragon Palace's pet shop? Bring me there to take a look. The girl who was wearing the blue armor shook her head and asked when she heard their words. Auntie, I know where it is, but I've never been there. I'll take you there. Auntie, do you want to buy a war pet? A girl immediately asked. Yes, let's go and take a look. I heard that there are more than 20 adult sea monsters. These mounts are very useful at the front line. More than 20 of them charging together is very powerful. Let's go and take a look. The girl nodded her head. The pet shop of the Dragon Palaces, War Pets, seems to be very famous recently. I want to go and take a look too. As the group of girls spoke, they flew out in a chattering manner. Wang Xian, who had returned to his room, did not hear the conversation outside. After resting in his room for 2 whole days, he finally walked out of his room. Let's go to the underground sea. This time, I have to gather all the resources needed to advance to the level of the Lord of the Eternal Gods. As for upgrading the Eternal Kingdom of the Dragon Palace, we'll see when the time comes. Wang Xian thought to himself. Without any hesitation, he flew straight towards the north. He continued to head out from the sea. After flying past the steel beach, Wang Xian entered the sea. There were also many students and teachers who went out from the sea. Some of them were traveling in groups, while others were traveling alone. The underground sea was the enemy of humans. Killing the sea monsters was something that everyone had to do. The weather is a little bad. There should be a rainstorm. Wang Xian looked at the sky. Tens of thousands of meters of black clouds were gathered in the sky. Under such circumstances, once the rainstorm started, it would last for at least half a month. He flew straight to the location in front of him. After flying for just an hour, it was raining cats and dogs in the sky. Wang Xian looked up and went straight into the sea. As his cultivation base had improved, he decided to go to the third level of the underground sea to take a look. If he was lucky, he might even encounter a sea monster's lair. However, even if he was unlucky, he had a solution now. Not long ago, Wang Xian had asked the Divine Emperor of Heaven's formation if there was a formation that could trap the eternal Divine Lord. There was a solution, but he was not strong enough back then. Now that his strength had increased, he could definitely set up the formation. Furthermore, he had already set up the formation on the 5 elements grinding mill. He would be able to use it in an instant. There are many people ahead. At this moment, Wang Xian looked ahead and realized that there were many people ahead. So weak. He swept his gaze across and saw the dozens of people. He raised his eyebrows slightly. All of them were at the godly state. Although this place belonged to the shallow sea area, it was still a little risky. Who is that? At this moment, Wang Xian swept his gaze across a figure. He felt that it was somewhat familiar. When he fixed his eyes on it, he realized that it was a student. Yu Bingbing. Wang Xian had some understanding of this girl. Based on the clothes and the weapons in her hands, Yu Bingbing could be considered the poorest student under him. Her clothes were a little bad, and she didn't have any treasures in her hands. When others were cultivating, she could even use divine stones to aid them. However, she didn't have anything. He had a deep impression of this girl. They must be catching something. Wang Xian's eyes flickered as he saw a middle-aged man grabbing something that looked like a crab. He hesitated for a moment before he flew towards Yu Bingbing. It would be fine if he didn't see it. Since he saw it, he naturally couldn't let his student take the risk here. If he ignited a wisp of divine fire, he would die if he was unlucky here. Buzz. Wang Xian moved and arrived in front of Yu Bingbing. No one in the surroundings sensed Wang Xian's arrival. The sudden appearance of Wang Xian also gave Yu Bingbing a shock. She stared at him and cried out in surprise. Teacher! Teacher! When he saw Wang Xian's face, he was slightly stunned. Then he quickly shouted, "Why aren't you cultivating in the academy?" Wang Xian looked at her and raised his eyebrows. Teacher! I went out to sea with the people from our fishing village to catch red blood crabs. It's easier to catch them in stormy weather. Furthermore, I know a little about formations, so I came over. Yu Bingbing said weakly. With the bloodline of a demonic beast, she could change her fishtail and sway it gently. Catch red blood crabs? You're too weak. It's a little dangerous here. If you're not careful, you'll lose your life. Wang Xian said indifferently. Fortunately, there's a powerful fishing boat above our fishing village. As Yu Bingbing spoke, she pointed upwards. Wang Xian looked at a fishing boat on the surface of the sea and shook his head. A small boat could withstand the attacks of 8 or 9 sea monsters. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.